This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everybody, and a very, very special and warm welcome to the boys and girls of Kempsville Meadows in the States. Welcome to Safari Lives, and we have joined with you this afternoon with a beautiful herd of zebra coming to you live from the wilderness of South Africa in the Sabi Sands. My name is Steve Folgenbridge. I'm just back from leave. I'm feeling very strong and very fresh, and on camera I've got Craig, and we're out. Please feel free to send your questions through with your teacher. You have been with us before. Let us know what you'd like to talk about. Any comments and questions you might have, let us know what you would like to do. We're starting off with some zebra. This is really, really nice to see. We don't see too many zebra in these areas, but there we go. It's a family. There's a nice big female with her head down, just like a horse, feeding on the grass and the hay-like material. It's very, very dry at the moment. We are in our winter right now, so we haven't had rain for quite a few months. Well, proper rain anyway. So the grass is very, very dry, and somehow these animals are going to have to survive eating that very, very dry grass. And yet they have managed to do it. You can see her belly. It's very, very fat and full of gas. That's what happens inside the belly. All sorts of gas and helping to break down the food inside. Very special process. And that's why the zebra are known as the farters of the bush. When they do run, they do make a lot of noise. If you've ever ridden a horse before, you might have heard how they do that. Lots of gas inside. Beautiful little family here. The black and white stripes. At least 7 of them in this dazzle. It's the group collective name for a group of zebra, because when they move they are so dazzling to see. Those stripes are supposed to be there as sort of a camouflage kind of confusion tactic when animals like lions are trying to catch them. You can see there's a youngster in the screen now. There might be a little bit of a rub of the... No, a little bit of a rub. Zebra-like horses are very sort of touchy-feely. Oh, I was looking for some milk, that one was, I think. Might be getting a little bit old for mum's milk. Still a little bit needy. They like to touch and be very close to each other. You can see much smaller, but also lots and lots of black and white stripes. And watch when it goes. Is it going to go behind mum? If it goes onto the other side, well, you can actually see it there. The legs are quite similar in length to that of mum's legs, which enables them to run very, very fast. And they're also feeding on the very dry grass. Very hard going this time of year for a lot of the animals to feed. But very, very pretty. The zebras are one of those animals that... Here we go, here comes another one. They are quite friendly. Okay, well, we're going to probably stay with these zebras for a little while, because I'm sure there's going to be lots and lots of questions. But I'm not the only one on safari this afternoon. Ralph Kirsten is out, and he's found a bird.
Well, hello and welcome to all of you. We are here in the Greater Kruger National Park in South Africa. I'm also out on game drive. Thanks, Steve. You're watching Safari Live, and my name is Ralph Kirsten. And on the camera this afternoon, I've got Sebastian. Hello, Sebastian, and he'll be helping me from the back there to find any animals that we might be able to find. It's a nice warm afternoon today, so I'm hoping that there will still be some animals walking around, because when it's quite hot they do like to relax in the shade. But this eagle here that we're looking at is called an African hawk eagle. It is a true eagle, and It is a little bit smaller than most of the other eagles, but please don't forget to send us all your questions through your teacher, because we'd love to know what you would like to know about all the animals that we're going to find this afternoon. Now, Romany, I'm not so sure if we're going to see a bird's egg, but I think there might be a bird's egg in one of the nests that's just off to the side of this eagle. There, that looks like one of its, that big one on the bottom is its nest. But we won't be able to climb up there without getting attacked by the eagle, because I'm sure there's some eggs in there, and they'll fight with their lives. If we go up there, we'll be in trouble. So I'm sure there is an egg or two, but I don't think we're going to be able to see it. So we'll just have to watch the eagle from here and look at his nest. Now, that is quite a small eagle for the ones that we get around here. They get much bigger than that, but this one is quite special, and that his name is really, really cool, isn't it? African hawk eagle, because it's an eagle that looks like a hawk. Wow. And look at that very sharp bill that he's got. That enables him to be able to tear the meat from the little rabbits and hares and mice and rats and all the things that he catches. And you see how he's bobbing his head? He's maybe looking at something that he might be able to catch on the ground. Wow, he's really pretty, hey? And you see how his back is very black, the feathers on the back, and on the front it's very white. And, well, I tell you what, this is a bird that's black and white, but there's a few other animals out here that are also black and white.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Ralph. African hawk eagle, such a marvelously coloured black and white bird. We are still with our painted horses here, and the two individuals you saw before were standing head to tail, which is quite a nice thing to do out in the African savannah where there's lots of flies. And when you have your head by your friend's tail, the tail flaps away and keeps the flies off your face. So it's quite an interesting and very common thing to be seen with the zebra. Christian, you want to know if a zebra kicks? Yes, they kick very, very powerfully, and male zebras actually will kill other male zebras, especially young male zebras, by kicking them in the head. And they can also kick lions or leopards or anything that's trying to catch their youngsters or their wives, for example. So yes, they kick very, very powerfully, and with their back legs, very similar to a normal horse. And they can also bite very, very viciously. They've got teeth on the top and bottom of the jaw, and the males have even got fake canines in their mouth, which are very sharp and used for fighting. But what we have here is a small family, so there's not going to be too much fighting in amongst them. Presley, you want to know if we can ride a zebra? Well, no. I don't think their backs are actually strong enough. There was a story many, many years ago when people moved into Africa. See, here they're coming closer. When people moved into Africa, where there's lots of diseases out in this part of the world, and lots of horses didn't survive. They died, and so people tried to use... there's a little bit of... Okay, so on the right there is a young male, and now the one who's coming towards him is a bigger male, and he wasn't happy with him coming too close to his ladies, so he showed that with body language, with his ears going down. And if he didn't listen to him, he would have probably given him a bit of a bite. So anyway, because of diseases killing horses in these areas, people thought they could maybe use zebras as a way of pulling wagons and also maybe riding them. But horses as we know them have been around humans for a very, very long time, so they kind of are accustomed to us, whereas zebras are completely wild, and you wouldn't be able to get close enough to ride one, and apparently their back is also not strong enough if you manage to catch up with one and it didn't kick you in the face, which I think could be quite painful. But they are such beautiful animals, aren't they? Lova, you want to know if a zebra is a type of horse? Well, they definitely are related somewhere down the tree. From a scientific sort of identification, yes, they are related. The same way all dogs around the world are kind of related to wolves, just a very long time ago. So there were definitely wild horses in Europe, and then zebras down all over Africa. There's a couple of species of zebra in Africa, about 2 or 3 I believe, maybe 4 actually, and they all would have descended, all would have come from the same sort of grandparents a very, very long time ago. But they've all changed slightly. Horses that we have today have been bred to do things differently. So maybe they had different colors, or maybe they had longer coats, but they definitely didn't look like the horses we see today that have been sort of bred to be much bigger and to be stronger and to sort of to do things that probably weren't able to do before, like being ridden and pulling chariots and all sorts of wonderful things. Very beautiful zebra. I'm so happy to see them. I'm just back from my leave, and here we have them very close to our camp, feeding on all the grass and getting their daily supplement. Sean, you want to know how many zebras there are here? In this group I counted 7, but this is kind of a family group with one bachelor male sort of hanging on the side, sort of a young male hanging around. So this would be sort of one family unit, but there could be a number of other units in and around the area. We don't see too many in this area because the trees are quite sort of dense. There is grass, but the zebras like to be able to see. They like to be able to run. Lions try and catch them, so they like more open areas. So you find them moving quite a lot. But in other parts of the Kruger, where it's much more open, you get lots and lots and lots of zebra. And up in the Masai Mara, in Kenya, where it's very, very open, you get huge herds of zebra moving through, and a lot of that's got to do with the food and the open spaces. It's kind of like the area that they like to occupy. And here comes one. She's looking rather fat, isn't she, Craig? Here she comes, the first one in front. And now, not only is she full of gas, she's probably pregnant. Romany, you want to know how they communicate? I don't know if you heard that just now, but they made a little classic sort of horse sort of sound with that. What do you call that noise, Craig? I don't know how to describe what you call that. It's not the same neigh as a horse does, but then they also are able to do this very high-pitched shouting noise when they are under stress, which I'm not going to do for you now because I'm not very good at it, and I don't want to scare the animals because they might think that something is coming. Here we go, there's a little youngster. And then a lot of the communication that they do is by looking at each other. The ears going flat, or baring of the teeth, showing the teeth. A lot of body language that happens out here in animal behavior, stuff that we're always looking for. It's not necessarily words, or should I say communication through listening. A lot of it is body language, and there's a lot of that in all animals, including people. You know when your friend or your mother's not very happy with you, don't you? Doesn't have to say anything, you just know. And all these animals have also got lots of those communication signals that they use. Okay, well, these beautiful 4-legged zebras out here on foot. We've got another gentleman, Tristan, who's only on 2 legs.
I do indeed, Steve. I have my own 2 legs that, well, I'm going to use to try and get me around through this vegetation and hopefully find lots and lots of interesting things. So, while Steve and Ralph are on the vehicle, we're going to try and see if we can find all kinds of things on a bushwalk. Now, as Steve mentioned, my name is Tristan. On camera, I've got David. And basically what we're going to be doing is, because the guys on the vehicles move and cover distance quite quickly, they don't see a lot of the smaller things that happen. So things like insects, tracks, and signs that the animals leave. And so we're going to try and look at all of those kind of things. We're going to look for all the little small things that is sometimes very difficult to see from the car. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to move through the bush, and while we do that, we're going to be very careful not to make too much noise. We're going to have a situation where we're going to try and kind of watch where we're placing our feet, so as that we don't sort of get into a situation where we make a lot of noise that scares the animals away. Because even if we're looking for small things, things like elephants and lions and leopards can all be out here, and we've got to be very careful that we don't disturb them and that they then come out and see what is making all this disturbance. So it's very important that we watch what we're doing and see what we're doing, and kind of make sure that we are aware of our environment. We also have to be very careful of the wind. Luckily this afternoon there's very, very little wind. There's a small little breeze that's blowing. Otherwise it's very quiet, it's very still, and it's very interesting this afternoon that there are no birds calling. So we came out here, and normally when you come out into the sort of African wilderness, we're very fortunate that we have lots and lots and lots of birds here, and it comes out and there's a big noise out here. There's lots of birds calling and chirping, but this afternoon feels a little quiet and a little eerie, and I'm not sure why. So we're going to have to try and investigate. Maybe there was a bird of prey like a hawk or something that flew over, and all the other birds have now hidden away and tried to sort of stay out of the way of that predator. Or we could have a situation that maybe there's a big predator like a leopard around as well. So we're going to try and see what we can find. It should be an interesting sort of afternoon. I love being out on foot. It's a very different feeling to being in the vehicle. So Romany, no, we don't catch animals, and the reason why is, imagine if you were walking to school, or you were at school, and a big giant came and picked you up by the scruff of your t-shirt. So imagine it picked you up like this and then just held you up and just sort of looked at you. Not very nice, would it? You would be quite scared. And so for animals, they would be very, very scared as well. And so we try not to pick them up. It causes them stress. What we're trying to do here is to try and see the animals and look at them and learn about them, but not actually interfere with them. We don't want a situation where we have animals fearing us and going into the sort of situation where they see us and they try to run away or get away from us. What we want is, we want a situation where animals kind of see us and they know that we're not a threat, and they sit there and we're allowed to then watch them from a nice close distance, but we're not disturbing them. So we try not to pick them up at all. It doesn't matter if it's a very small insect all the way up to a big animal like a lion. So you've got to try and sort of balance it out. And if you wouldn't pick up a lion because it's dangerous, obviously, then don't pick up a thing like a snake or any of those kind of things. It's different if there's, let's say, an insect walking on a branch that's on the ground and you pick up the branch. That's okay, because, you know, they are on that little piece of their environment and they probably feel quite safe on that branch if they haven't moved away from you. But if they're not if they're trying to get away, then picking them up and stopping them is just making them very stressed and not ideal. So it's always good to look at things, but you use your eyes and not your hands. Good. Now, I'm going to carry on. We're going to try and go into these thickets, see what interesting little things we can find. And while we do that, let's send you back across to Ralph, who I believe has left the road and is doing what I'm about to do and head off into the thickets.
So, talking about driving through, walking through thickets, I'm driving through them. And why am I doing that? Well, I'm looking for a leopard that was here this morning. So, very exciting, but I hope I can find him, but it's not always that easy. He was here this morning, but he might have moved away from this area. And as I said earlier, it is a little bit hotter than it was this morning, so maybe he went looking for some shade. And that's what I'm going to be checking, all the spots where there's a little bit of shade around. And maybe he's here somewhere still. I'm hoping he is. Now, Victoria, we've got all sorts of wild cats in South Africa, from ones this big to lions. So the little African wild cats is like your domestic cat, or the cat that you might have at home, those little ones, right up to lions, which are the second biggest of all the cats in the world. What are the biggest cats in the world? Those are tigers. But tigers, we don't get them here. They're more more in Asia or in India. That's where they come from. But we've got the lions. But right now I'm looking for one that's just a little bit smaller than a lion, and he doesn't also like moving around in big groups like excuse me, like a lion does. He moves around by himself. So he's a little bit more difficult to find as well, and that's why we just need to go slowly. And if you can help me look for him as well, if you see some spots in the grass here, you let me know, okay? Because he's very difficult to see or spot. Haha, see what I did there? I'm sure he's around here somewhere. Now, Lova, when an animal is hurt here in the African bush and in the wild and in most national parks around the world, it's not normal that we will help them, no, because if that animal is hurt, he might become food for somebody. So if we had to help him, we would take away the food for the other animals that would eat him. So when an animal gets sick or he gets hurt, we don't help them. It's only if it's going to be a sickness that could maybe spread throughout all the other animals that will maybe help them. But mostly we leave them be and let nature take its course. Now we have to drive along here very slowly and just see if we can spot this leopard. I'm sure he's having a little snooze here somewhere in the shade. And that's why we just need to go slowly, because if a leopard lies down in the grass, you won't see him. You'll have to be right next to him to be able to see him, because you can see the color of this grass. It's very brown, and it's very much the same color as a leopard's coat. They do have some spots on them, but very difficult now to see them in this kind of light and this kind of color grass. But we're just going to keep on trying, and we'll look for any little signs that we can find. And speaking of signs, it seems I'm not the only one that's looking for those.
Well, indeed, Ralph, we are looking too, and you were saying that leopards can hide in the bush, but what they can't hide is their footprints. Now, this is a leopard footprint from what looks like last night, and you can see that this particular leopard track is from a male. So what you've got here is you've got toes in front, one toe there, another toe over there, another toe there, and another toe here. So that makes the 4 toes. Remember on a leopard that they've only got 4 toes. Their 5th toe, or sort of dew claw as it's called, sits quite high up on their leg and is not a part of the track at all. So when their foot is down like this, their sort of 5th digit is at the back here, sort of right down at the sort of top end, and that helps when they're sort of trying to hunt and catch prey. It can grip in and just kind of hold on a little bit. The other reason why we know it's a leopard is because the toes here, you can see there's no claws on the front. So this is the toe, and there's no sort of sign of a claw on front. The leopard's claws are sheathed, which means that they're not out all the time, not like a hyena or a cheetah. A cheetah or a hyena, what we would have is we'd end up with a little kind of, I'm trying to do it for you, but you'd end up with that on the front, which looks very much like little claws, and so that's how you would know if it was a cheetah or a hyena. The other thing with a leopard is at the back of its pad, and this is of all cats, so cheetah and lions, is that they have this lobe here, 1 lobe, 2 lobes, and then a 3rd lobe that goes out at the back over there. Something like a hyena would only have 2, so this middle one you wouldn't see at all. It would be this one coming in and then making a 2nd one around like that. Now I know it's from probably last night because of the way that the soil looks. When you're using tracks and trying to age tracks, it's very important to look at how the soil looks. And if we look here on this road, you can see there's lots of little grains of sand and rocks and all kinds of things that are fairly loose. It's kind of all kind of sort of broken up and it's not really compacted. But when we look at this track, you can see how all the sand has been squashed into the road and it's made it sort of very smooth. You see that? There's not lots of little stones that are out, and so we know that that's a very good track because the leopard walked here and it squashed everything, and since then we haven't had too much wind, and so that means that not many stones are on top. As the days go by and we get wind and cars driving around, then what's going to happen is little rocks like this will basically fall into the toes, and you'll see they'll get on top like that, and that's how you can age if they're a little bit older. And if you see this rock like this, and if I push it and I press it down like that, you can see it goes down into the soil. So that's how I was saying that it's a fresher track, and that's from me doing it right now. But if you see it on top like it was before, then you know that these tracks are a little bit older. Now the problem is with the male leopard is male leopards can move a very long distance, and they can go quite far away, which makes life a little bit difficult. And so this track, even though it's from last night, I'm pretty sure that this male leopard has walked very, very far from here. In fact, I think he's probably going to be on the other side of the reserve, and pretty certain that it is the same individual that Ralph is trying to find in the thickets where he is, which is a long way sort of down to my southeast. And so hopefully Ralph will get lucky. We'll have a little look around, just double check these tracks and just see. And while we do that, let's send you across to Steve, who's found himself another hoofed animal.
We have indeed another one with stripes. These are white, and the body is a chocolate brown, and he's about to show himself. There he is. There's the horns on the head of a male nyala, which actually means onion in Zulu. Isn't that a funny name? Nyala. But he also uses his stripes for camouflage, trying to hide away in the thick bushes from lions and leopards. I know Ralph is on the tail of a leopard, so we thought we'd stop and show you the kind of food that the leopards like to eat. But this is a very big male, and a little bit further down, Craig will be able to show you, there's a couple of the females. They're much smaller. You see they're a little bit lighter in color, also got the spots and the stripes, but they're much more down the alley of a leopard. But you can see how beautiful they are. Very, very delicate. But in the background, you might be able to see we've got a big watering hole here called Chitwa watering hole. And look at all of those, boys and girls. We have got a huge pod of hippos that are busy suntanning on the bank. Didn't want to go too close, because often if you get too close, they just run back into the water. So now we get to see them in their round selves sitting on the bank. Hello, Sean. You want to know why hippos are so fat? Well, Sean, it's a very good question, really. They feed on the same sort of diet that the zebras feed on. The zebras are rather fat, but that's more gas inside. But the hippos, it's all about sort of insulation. And they live in water, and they move around at night when it's a little bit cooler. So the sort of, I'd say the fat is to insulate and to keep them warm. And then when they get very hot, they go into the water, as this one's going to do. He's getting a little bit too hot. Is he? Oh, no, he's not. He's just moving his leg. I think he might have lost feeling in the leg. Pins and needles. And so the fat is really just to insulate them. So when they get really, really hot, they go into the water and they cool themselves down. And when they get really, really cold, they sit in the sunshine like that. Because we are in the winter at the moment. These are the coldest days we experience here in the Sabi Sands. It's not very cold, to be honest. Longdon, you want to know what a hippo eats? They feed on the same sort of food as the zebra, but their mouth is much bigger. So you can imagine when you're using sort of chopsticks to pick up something, you can be more selective with what you're picking at, sort of like tweezers. And then if you're using something like a lawnmower to pick up the same thing, you're not as selective. So the hippo, just like the white rhino, has got a very, very big mouth. And they're not able to select their food very well. They just basically eat all the grass that they can come across. Whereas the zebra can be a little bit more picky. And when we saw the nyala earlier, he's got a much smaller mouth. He can be even pickier than the zebra can. So it's all these sort of adaptations that allow these animals to live out here, can feed in similar areas. But the hippos, as you can see, they need lots and lots of water. If there's no water there, the hippos will not survive. They will get too sunburnt and too dehydrated, and their big fat-looking skin will dry out. Isaiah, most certainly you want to know if they're sleeping. They are. They are really having a proper little nap there, because hippos come out at night and they spend many of the hours in the evening walking around feeding. You can imagine when you're in a big animal like that weighing, what, 2,000 to, let me work it out, 4,000 pounds or so, walking around. Obviously those little ones are far less, but a big one gets up to 4,500 pounds. They need a lot of food in their day, so they walk around at night. So during the daytime they basically just plump themselves down either in the water or on the land and do absolutely nothing. Just lie there. And you can probably see there's a number of birds jumping around on the hippo. There one just landed. They are feeding on ticks, but there's not too many ticks on a hippopotamus. But what there is on a hippopotamus is lots of cuts and scratches, because when they run through the bushes there's lots of thorns out here in the African savannah, and also sometimes lions decide to try and attack the hippo, and they often will leave scratches and scars on the back. And what those oxpeckers are actually feeding on is the blood from the wounds on the back of the hippos. Now, I'm going to see if we can go a little bit further forward, and maybe we can see them. They're probably going to move as we go forward, but we'll just jump forward about 15 meters or so, and we'll see if we can get a better view. But in the meantime, let's see how Ralph is getting on his search for that male leopard.
Well, the search is continuing, and as I said a little bit earlier, it's not always as easy as it seems to find leopards. So I'm sure that he's moved from this morning. He's not in the same spot, and so I'm going to now try and look in some other little areas and see if we can spot the spotted one. And that is a leopard. Cheetah are also spotted cats. Now, Benji, leopards, and the one leopard that we're looking at, well, trying to find, is about 80 kilograms. So what is that? That's about 160 or 180 pounds. It's about as heavy as I am. So and I'm 6'3". I'm quite tall, and I'm not huge, but I am slightly taller than your average person, and well, he's probably about my weight, and that is quite incredible, because when you see him, he doesn't look that big for a wild animal, but he doesn't look that big, but he's about as big as I am, so it's quite incredible actually. And the animals always look smaller than what they actually are out here. Now, Sean, leopards, their biggest defense is their claws. And leopards, if they are fighting with an animal that they're not going to win with, the best thing they can do is climb up a tree, because they are the best tree climbers of all the cats, the leopards are. So if they have some hyenas chasing them, or even lions, the first thing a leopard will do is go up a tree. And he'll also take his food up a tree. So if he kills an impala or a warthog, he'll take it straight up a tree and put it in the fork, and then the other animals, all they can do is walk around the bottom, and he'll sit from up top of that tree and watch them trying to get to his meat, but he won't be in any danger, because they normally can't really climb that well. So the leopard is very clever like that. Now, Lover, if a male leopard has food, he won't share it with anybody. They'll have to come and take it away from him, and that's why leopards, they normally like your even your house cat, they like to be alone, they like to eat alone, they like to do everything alone, and only sometimes will they tolerate or let another little cat or another leopard come into their area, but it's not very often. So leopards, they like to be on their own, they like to be alone, and lions, they're the ones that like to stay in big groups, isn't it? Cheetahs are the other ones that can also stay in a little bit of a group, but leopards generally stay all by themselves, and they don't share their food with anybody, and they don't like to walk around with them either. So that's why it's also a little bit more difficult to find them, because they're always on their own. So when we're looking for them now, we just need to be looking for just one of them. And I'm telling you that this guy is hiding here somewhere in the long grass, but it seems like he's not the only one.
Well, Ralph, I hope that that leopard comes out wherever it is and shows himself to you. I know Ralph has been really looking for leopard quite a bit over the last few days, and so I'm hoping he gets a bit of luck, because it sometimes can get a little bit much when you try and find tracks all the time and then you battle to find them. But leopards are shy animals, and it makes it difficult to find them, so you have to persevere a little bit. Now, while I've been walking along and sort of being out here, the one thing that you need to look out for is not only the signs of footprints when you are looking for animals, you also need to look for their poo. And this is poo for two different animals, but the reason why I've picked them up is because I want to show you something quite interesting. Both of these animals are grass eaters, or vegetation, they're herbivores. So they only eat grass or leaves. But the interesting part about it is you can see it's two very different colors. And the reason why it's two very different colors is that even though these guys both eat grass and they're very, very good at processing that grass, they have a good digestive system. One is a ruminant and the other one has a slightly different system, and it's why the grass comes out a different color. Now this particular pellet over here, this is a pellet from an impala, a very small impala. But if I break it open, you'll see that inside everything is kind of been ground down, and it's almost like a powder that comes out. And so what happens with these guys is as they're feeding, they'll eat, they'll swallow, it will go down into their tummy and a ball will form. When the ball is kind of like that, they then regurgitate it, so they basically cough it up effectively into their mouth, and then they re-chew it, and they break down that grass so that they absorb all the nutrients out of it, sometimes even leaves from the impalas, and they'll try and get as much out of it as possible. Now the other little pellet that we've got here, even though it's a similar size, it's from a very much smaller animal, from a scrub hare. Now a scrub hare is like a rabbit, and this particular little ball over here is different, because what happens with this is that the scrub hare eats it, but it's not able to regurgitate, so it can't actually bring that ball back up and chew it again and make sure that it gets the nutrients that way. But in winter, when it's feeding off grass, there's not very much nutrients out here because the grass is dead and drying, and so it's got to make a way to get more nutrients. And so what it does is it goes to the toilet, and then it takes that little ball and it eats it, and so it then chews it again and it absorbs the nutrients the second time round as it goes through, and that means that it gets kind of leached of all of its sort of color. And when you break it open, if you have a look, you can see it's also very powdery, so the consistency of one and the other is very, very similar. I'm just trying to break this one up a little bit more. So you can see they're both very powdery, but this one has lost all its color because it's gone through the digestive system, been defecated, which means they basically went to the toilet, and then re-eaten, whereas this one has just stayed inside of the body. So very, very interesting. The good thing with these things, though, is when you pick these up, if you're ever out here on a bushwalk, is that they are very good to test wind. So if you want to know which direction the wind is going, you just drop it, and we can see that the wind is blowing from my left side to my right side. So they're really good to help you if you're trying to work out which way the wind is blowing in order to keep you nice and safe. Good. Now, let's try to get all the poo off my hands, because we don't want dirty, pooey hands. And while we do that, let's send you across to Steve and see what he's been up to.
Yes, well, we are closer to the dam, the watering hole, and look at what we've found. It looks like a water monitor lizard. You see the tongue is flicking in and out of the mouth. Now by doing that, it's picking up all sorts of chemicals in the air, and they are very good at finding eggs and baby birds, baby squirrels, anything like that. You've probably all seen snakes doing that with their tongue. One of those things makes everyone quite scared of them, but all it is communication, basically smelling the outside environment around them, and when it comes into their mouth, then It gives their brain a very good sort of idea of things that are going on. And the monitor lizard is a reptile. So like the hippo was quite enjoying sitting in the sunshine, the monitor lizard is just a big solar panel sitting in the sun. The hippo popped up in the background there. He's a little bit warm, obviously. A big solar panel in the sunshine, so the sun warms them up. And not like us, the reptiles, they need the sun's energy to keep them moving. Whereas the hippos and the nyala that you saw, and us and the zebra, we need to eat to make us nice and warm. You might have felt that before in winter. Your parents probably make you lots of soup. Always notice if you're feeling cold, you have a little bit of something to eat and you suddenly feel a lot better. I don't know if it's just me, Craig, but doesn't the belly look very fat on this individual? I don't know. She looks... Maybe it's a female. I don't know how to tell the difference between a female and male monitor lizard. But maybe she's looking for somewhere to lay her eggs. We wouldn't know. There's a beautiful bird in the left called a blacksmith lapwing. And he could be looking for her eggs. You see she's shouting now. They sometimes can chase away monitor lizards if they get too close to their eggs. They will have their eggs just on the bank like that, camouflaged with the ground, almost invisible to the naked eye, so the lizard would be able to find them by smelling. But if it got too close, mommy lapwing would get very angry. And I've seen lapwings chase elephants away. Can you imagine a bird making an elephant move? There we go. Busy dive bombing it now. It's not happy with the approach. There is another one in the background, enjoying some insects from the water's edge. All sorts of life down here at Chitwa Watering Hole. You probably heard the hippos in the background busy shouting. That's what they do all the time. Lots of... Romany, the biggest animal, you'd like to know what the biggest animal we can see out here in the savannah? It would most certainly be the African elephant. But in the world, the biggest animal you can see is indeed the blue whale. So I've never seen one, but they are very, very big. But out here, the African elephant can get up to 12,000, 13,000 pounds. That's pretty big. That's pretty big. But there we have the hippo, which is probably the third biggest. You can see the youngsters again are still on the bank. They didn't move even though we came a bit closer. Madison, you want to know if the hippos are brothers and sisters? And it's possible, but a lot of these hippos look all about the same sort of age. So it's not very common for hippos to have twins, but we think that a number of the females had babies at the same time. There's 12 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12. All about the same sort of size and age. And so they're probably cousins or related in some sort of way. I don't think any of them are old enough to be older than the other ones, but it's possible. It's hard to really say. And just that pile of hippos there, some are a little bit bigger than the others, but in general they're all pretty much the same sort of size. Maybe that one in the middle is a bit bigger, some smaller ones. But it's very interesting. The pregnancy time with hippos is the same as with us. Only 9 months. Can you believe it? 9 months for such a big animal. And that is the beautiful thing about hippos living in water, is they can have such small babies and still keep them nice and safe from predators out in the wilderness. And Ralph Kirsten is still looking for his cat.
Well, I'm going to just go down and have a look at one of our little water holes and see if maybe this leopard has come for a little drink, because that's where the animals do go to drink, in the little pans that are lying around. They don't have taps like we do, where we just open it and put your cup underneath. They need to go to the water hole to go and have a drink. and it's not as clean as our water too. It can be quite dirty, and so they need to be very tough to be able to survive out here in the wild. We are very soft, aren't we, as humans? Isaiah, yes, the leopards like to move around at night. That's their favorite time. Why? Because they can see very well at night, and they can easily see the little animals that are not so well or cannot see so well at night, so it makes it easier for them to be able to catch them. But just imagine being an impala out here at night. You'll be very scared, won't you? So I think every single night, all the animals, when the sun comes up in the morning, they're all like, shoo, we survived another night. Wow, it must really make them tired. The whole night they're on edge, they're scared that a leopard's around the next corner, and they can't even see if he's coming. That must be very, very scary, I think. And so I'm glad I'm not an impala. Now, see there, we've got the little water hole here, but it doesn't look like anything's come down to drink. So we'll just have to keep on searching for our leopard. Now, I just want to say thank you to all of you for watching on this school safari, and please don't forget, we would love for you to join us once more. But, well, for now, it's the end, just for now, and I hope to see you once again. Now, I'm going to continue on the search for this leopard, but bye-bye for now, guys.
Well, hopefully the schools will have had a good afternoon and will continue to enjoy the rest of their day. And for all of you that have carried on with us for the remainder of our afternoon's safari, well, it's a very warm welcome. And remember that you can talk to us on hashtag SafariLive. We'd love to hear from all of you and see what questions you've got and any comments that you may have. Now, we are sitting with possibly one of the most chilled out, relaxed terrapins in the world. David is across Treehouse Dam from where I am. I was walking along the edge and I thought this terrapin would go diving into the water, but it has somewhat decided that where it is sitting is too comfortable and too nice for it to actually move. And so what it's got is got its head up, kind of watching me, but legs are stretched out, and it's kind of got this sort of relaxed posture as though it's reclining on its shell like a lounger. So it's a very relaxed terrapin, and it's thoroughly enjoying the bit of sunshine. I suppose we've had a few cold days recently, and so a bit of sunshine on the banks of Treehouse Dam seems like a very sort of promising prospect if you are of the terrapin kind. So this individual is just taking it very easy, and from this back end it looks very funny because its legs are kind of just splayed outwards as though it really just does not care at all. Now, of course, I don't want to disturb it, so I'm not going to move any closer. I'm pretty sure this is as far as I'll actually be able to get to this terrapin. I don't think it would allow me any closer, but what is interesting is that if it did go down into the water, the speed at which it would go would be quite something. They are quite fast-moving animals. Everyone kind of takes them for granted because they bob about in the water pretty aimlessly, don't really do too much. But when they're on land like this and they feel like something's threatening them, they can really move very, very quickly. And as Herbie said to me, I must be prepared for a 120-kilometer-an-hour exit of the bank and into the water. So we are well prepared, Herbie. Don't worry. We shall watch him very carefully. We shall even have, our eyes open so as not to miss the epic action of this terrapin, well, doing nothing at this stage. So the reason we kind of came to Treehouse Dam is because there was a report earlier today of a male leopard crossing north from sort of Gowrie Main, Triple M area, and this is really the only water source in this whole western block of Djuma. And so we thought maybe if it was Hukamuri, he would come this side, also kind of somewhat hoping that it might even be somebody like Hosanna kind of moving into this area, and we might get lucky and find his tracks coming this way. We know Hosanna last year absolutely loved Treehouse Dam, and so I was kind of hoping that that would be the case. We also know that Tundi crossed this morning on the western side of Weaver's Nest coming northwards, and so she might also have been around, but so far no sign. So I was just walking along the banks of the dam just trying to see if any leopard did come and drink. Now, our terrapin is still sitting here, which is absolutely baffling because I've taken a few steps forward And I wonder if it wants to make friends. Maybe it does. Maybe it wants to decide to be a friend. Maybe we should call it Terence and somehow work out who exactly he is. Anyway, while we decide and sort of banter between Terence and myself and find out a little bit more about his family history, let's send you back across to Steve. I'm not sure what he's doing or where he is, but you know, Steve, it will be entertaining.
Thanks, Tristan and Terence, the Terrapin. Well, we have got a beautiful juvenile black-crowned night heron. I'm getting very confused in my language. Juvenile black-crowned night heron that's out in the daytime. It was looking quite interested at poking its head into the water. We're still at Chitwa watering hole. I don't think it's going to do anything. They are by nature nocturnal, but it doesn't mean that they won't hunt during the daytime. But we had him with the head down and poised in sort of a heron-like ambush tactic style, but it didn't come to any fruition. Craig had the slow-mo ready to go in case something happened. I've never seen one of these guys catch anything or do anything other than just sit on the branch of a tree. So if we saw one plunge, dive into the water or do something quite sort of acrobatic, that would have been quite something, I think. Hey Craig, have you ever seen them? Oh, he's moving. Hey, here we go. It's the most I've ever seen them doing in the daytime. So they'll feed on fish and frogs, birds, maybe even small crocodiles, I suppose, if they could. But right now, he's going to feed on some stick. The roots of that tree are delicious. He watched the elephants the other day come down and... Oh, hang on. He's doing a little bit of baiting, folks. It looks like he's going to do some fishing. Something I've only ever seen a greenbacked heron do. They quite often will use a piece of... or an insect, for example, and put it on the water, and as the water sort of floats past them and a fish goes for it, they then catch the insect. I've never seen a night heron doing it, though. You can see that beautifully characteristic big red eye. There you go, a bit of a bill clean at the same time. Definitely wants some of the bark. The elephants were telling him that there's lots of nutrients in the bark. He thought he'd try it out. There we go. Beautifully big feet. Look how wide spread out they are. Might just be a youngster inquisitive in all of their play and adventure. I wouldn't know how to tell you how many months old this individual is, but definitely breeding or juvenile plumage. Gizmo, yes, very smart bird. I've never seen them doing anything by daytime, so I have no doubt they have some similar tactics to that of the green-backed heron and other heron species that we find. But probably just learning. There's not enough nighttime hours for a young bird. They need to practice in the daytime as well, and maybe he's actually seeing a bit of his reflection and is wondering, who is that dashing young fellow? I've seen them a couple times at this exact spot at Chitwa watering hole, but normally a little bit more sort of ensconced in that bush. That word was just for Jamie. She loves that word, ensconced. And he's jumping from one to the other, working on his flight feathers. Could be a girl, I'm not sure. A little bit too far away from the water's edge to do anything useful, I would think. But there's definitely things moving underneath. That's probably catching their attention. I think he might have had enough. Might be walking back into the bushes. Well, we'll see. Hello, Steve. Yes, lots of aquatic birds have got very large feet because of the substrate that they'll move around on. Night herons I've seen a couple of times really in the late afternoon as the sun is just setting, sort of walking around the water's edge looking for all sorts of prey items. And obviously these waters often recede and leaving muddy areas, and if you didn't have very large snowshoe-like feet, well, then your hunting days as an aquatic bird are very limited. You'll just sink right in there like a warthog, and there'll be no hunting for you. So very large feet enable them to walk on very soft and muddy substrate, and that is obviously their kind of hunting preference. And you'll see with all of the storks and herons, they've all got very, very big feet. The African jacana having the biggest feet, and they can actually walk on the lilies on the water on very sort of massive toes. This one is giving us a proper show. Doesn't realize that he's actually a night heron. Steve, yes, I certainly do. I think you can see all sorts of things going on under the water. I mean, there might be a little bit of a reflection now, but the only reason that these guys are necessarily nocturnal is just to sort of negate the competition that they experience during the day from other sort of fish-catching birds. But not only fish they're looking for anything that might be moving around on the bank. But I've never seen them actively hunting the way that a... Oh, what's that? Oh, that is a baby crocodile, indeed. The baby crocodile. And I think he might be a little bit too big for the night heron, but definitely a heron. So they have that powerful neck. They're able to sort of shoot it into the water to catch whatever they need. But I can't say I've ever physically seen them doing that. Well, there's another fish-eating animal, the Nile crocodile, enjoying the sunshine like the hippos were doing. Warm up that very small body. Craig's going to show us a much bigger crocodile with a beautiful smile. Every dentist's dream, white teeth like that. So definitely, the competition when I talk about the night heron moving by night to feed on fish, and then you've got that baby crocodile, they'll be feeding on much smaller fish than what this one will be feeding on. This one will be feeding on all sorts of fish, the large ones specifically, but then also on little crocodiles. So competition out in the African wilderness, or in the world in general, is a very, very difficult place to be. If you're not strong enough to be up to the task, well, you'll either get eaten by a crocodile much bigger than yourself, or if you're very small, you'll get eaten by a bird twice your size. So you have to be very vigilant, constantly sleeping with one eye open, so to speak. And I believe Ralph is still busy searching for a cat who no doubt will have maybe one or not even either one of his eyes open.
Yep, you're pretty right there, Steve. I'm searching for any cat that we can find. But as you can see, we're heading now back west. Oh, I feel a song coming on. Going back west. I don't know the rest of it, but anyway, you know what I mean. So we've left that area where Tingana was, and he is no more. And we're now heading west because we've heard reports that good old Hukumuri, the other male leopard, has made his way onto the property. And besides Shudulu, that is my favorite cat that I have encountered on this property. So I'm always ready to jump at the opportunity. When they're on property, I'm like a fly on a piece of poo. I just get attracted that way. Or should we say a dung beetle to a bit of poo. Anyway, so we're heading that way. Karen, you want to know if anybody's seen Tlalamba? I don't think anybody's seen her for a little while now. They've seen Thandi, but Thandi keeps leaving Tlalamba in a specific area, and it's not always a bad thing, especially if Thandi's not with Tlalamba. We don't actually really want to be with her too much because it can create a little bit of problems, especially if there's a few vehicles coming in. It can scare her away from the area that mommy has left her in, and so it's actually a good thing when they're not together not to be with Tlalamba. However, we do also want to habituate Tlalamba to the vehicles that we can keep her as a viewing cat, because once a leopard has lost or not been habituated, it can be very difficult, if not impossible, to do it after that. So there's a few cats around, like Kajima, one of the male leopards, that he runs away from vehicles, he runs away from people on foot, and if you know leopards, if they don't want to be seen, they won't be, and Kajima is one of those. He's very rarely seen, and when he is, it's normally very fleeting, and he disappears into the thickets. So we're very lucky with the cats like Tingana, Tandi, and even Hukumuri and Shudulu. Even though Shudulu a little bit more, it's just her habits really that is a little bit different, because she's a bit younger than Tandi, and she moves around a lot more, but she's still nicely habituated to the vehicle, so it's still quite easy for us to get very close and to follow her. She doesn't run away from us. She does move away from us a little bit more on foot, so she's not as habituated on foot as she is with the vehicles, but that's generally it's general with all the leopards. They're not quite as comfortable with people on foot. They don't allow you to get as close, and very often you're walking on their tracks just behind them, and when I say just behind them, maybe 100 or 200 meters behind them, and they just keep staying just out of eye shot. They can smell you, they can hear you, and they just stay where you can't see them. Now, there's a little steenbokkie. It's always difficult to spot, and I'm not even going to turn off the vehicle. Ooh, there's a second one. It looks like they might be having a little bit of a fight. Look at that, here they come. I wonder if that was a little territorial battle. Now, the reason I don't turn off the vehicle is because that often chases them away, but that one seems quite angry with that other steenbok. I'm not sure if it was territorial or a male chasing a female. Could be either of those, but we got quite lucky there to see that. A very, very secretive little antelope are the steenbok. Steenbok meaning stone buck or goat. A bok, literally directly translated, is a goat. But it can be like an antelope as well. It's a bit of a dual meaning. So a stone antelope is the name, and it's because mostly when you spot them, they generally freeze and look like a stone. But this one now, just poking his head out. You can see those tiny little sharp horns that they have, and then the white belly. It's actually one of the most common antelope over the entire sort of southern Africa region. Steenbok. It's quite surprising because they are rather secretive. Okay, so this guy moving through the grass there, I'm pretty sure we're going to lose sight of him. Now, I'm going to carry on and see if I can get any signs of Hukumuri or Shudulu, well, I'm going to be on the move now, and I'm just going to keep on looking.
Well, Ralph, you do that. You keep on looking, and I wish you all the success in the world. Now, over the past few years of us being here on Djuma, there's been multiple presenters, guides, people that have complained about the nightly visits of some of our spotty friends and not the leopards. So our hyenas are often in camp, they're often causing a lot of problems, and the evidence of that is right here where I'm sitting. You might ask, how? Well, if you have a look here, this is a big pile of dung for a hyena that's eventually broken down. This is all the hair from various animals that it's eaten. There's a few little bits of bone lying around, and you can kind of see the white outer sort of exterior of the dung that was dry before it all got broken down, and probably broken down by carcass beetles or something like that. But right slap bang in the middle is, well, a piece of our dustbin. So this is a piece of the bin that has been eaten and broken off and has, well, passed through a hyena's sort of digestive system can't have been very comfortable given the size of that piece of plastic. But it's kind of gone all the way through, and that just gives you an idea of how far they can move away from the lodge, because we're right down near the southern boundary, south of Treehouse Dam. And this is a piece of, like I say, it might not be our bin, but it is a bin from the lodge. It's one of those sort of black bins that we use, and we've had multiple black bins be devoured by our hyenas, in particular Ribbon. She seems to somehow love it, and she's now taken to, in fact, this is a good story, because last night Steve came to me this morning and he said to me, no, just, there's something got to be done about these hyenas. I woke up last night thinking that some of the staff had gotten hungry in the middle of the night and were in the kitchen and messing around with plates, and he said he came out and he found a hyena, which we think is Ribbon, kind of on her back legs, and the sink where the plates go after dinner and kind of get put in the washing up water and all those kind of things is quite high. David, what would you say about sort of, I would say, let's stand up so I can show you roughly. It would be probably about here to me. Is that about right, David? Yeah, about that size. And so it's not very sort of low down. But anyway, Steve walked out and apparently he found said hyena on its back legs, paws on the sink, and mouth in amongst all the plates, picking up plates and walking off with a plate in its mouth. So they've now decided that bins are not enough. It's now plates that they need to sort of go after as well. And so Steve said that occurred 3 times during the course of the night, and he was thoroughly unimpressed with said hyenas. But that's part of living out here and part of how it goes. Like I say, it's not ideal that hyenas are eating plastic. It just gives you an idea of how strong their digestive systems and guts are to be able to sort of pass that without any complication at all. Well, talking about the man who had a torrid night being tormented by hyenas, let's send you across so you can give you a first-hand account of what happened.
Yes, indeed. I thought I heard someone having a midnight snack, moving around a whole lot of bowls and plates, and I for a moment thought that very inconsiderate, as it was past 2 in the morning and the noise was a little bit loud. Plates moving against each other, and when I opened my door, a hyena ran past with a solid white plate in their mouth directly away from us. So it's always nice to wake up in the morning to see something like that. Definitely gets the heart a little. And it did it a couple further in the night. Definitely something of interest. Okay, well, we're going to move back onto Juma's side, see if we can give. In the meantime, let's go see where exactly he's at.
So, hyenas, yes. I was just chatting now with Seb about hyenas, and sometimes it actually seems like they're a little bit cuckoo, because they even come and drink the soapy water out of the basin that has got the dishes in it. The soapy water that's left after the dishes were done. So I think their stomachs are so acidic that they literally, it doesn't do anything to them. They probably actually feel great after having a nice soapy drink. But hyenas are incredible things. That it actually amazes me how they're always left of center. They're totally different to all the other animals, and they always surprise you in ways like that, especially in the things that they can eat and the things that they do. So yeah, but it can be quite scary. I'm sure. I didn't see them this time, but I've also opened my door and there were 3 hyenas at the kitchen, and I literally just closed my door again, because I've had my times when I've tried to chase hyenas away. Mostly they do run away, but they can be a little bit like honey badgers sometimes. And when you sort of stomp your foot on the ground and the hyena walks towards you, it's actually very scary, because you stomp your foot on the ground and you expect them to run away, but when they almost walk towards you aggressively, it's a whole different story. So you've got to be careful of hyenas. If they're not in the mood for shenanigans, you don't push the subject with them. And There was also, one of the game reserves that I worked on here, Korongwe Game Reserve. I was also training students there, and we had like a sort of lecture hall on stilts, and there were stairs up to where we used to have our dining hall / lecture hall, and we always used to go and have dinner up there, and then below we had a table tennis and then our fridges, etc. And there we used to often come down from up top after having dinner, and there were hyenas trying to climb up the stairs to come and come and see us for dinner, and sometimes they were halfway up the stairs. And so that was quite scary, and at that stage it's quite difficult to scare him away because he's on his way up. So a lot of the times people used to get very, very scared. And send us any of your hyena stories if you've ever been to Africa. It's always amazing to hear any of the stories from anywhere that you may have encountered them, especially spotted hyenas, but also brown. It's nice to know, brown hyenas are more solitary, and they do have a very particular smell about them as well. And I've encountered many brown hyenas, especially out in the Namib Desert, and so it's there's people that really don't like hyenas, and then there's other people that really love them. I'm one of the latter. I really do love to see hyenas, and their calls are always gives me goosebumps. It's like jackals and lions. They're all just part of this massive system that just makes it so special. Now, I am moving in an area here that Shadulu often walks through, and from here then I'm going to just head to Sandy Patch, which is right on our western boundary, and just see if I can pick up on any signs of not the hyenas, because those signs are everywhere. There's tracks of hyenas across this entire place, but it's just quite difficult to find any of them at the moment because they seem to move such far distances. Well, they do walk very far, and it seems they're not the only ones that are walking.
Well, exactly, Ralph. We are also, well, we're not walking right now, but we are walking in general this afternoon. Right now we're quite stationary, and that's because we were looking at something not walking, but running. So, here in this particular section over the sort of broken ground, quite difficult to see what's going on here, but actually it's a few sort of indicators that can tell you what this is. Basically what this is an animal that's running at high speed, and it's an animal that's probably trying to get out of here pretty quickly. But there's two things here that will give it away. Now, you've got this sort of shape that comes around like this. This is just a piece of the ground that was broken, so the crusty sort of surface of the ground that broke and was pulled along. But at the back here you can see that there's one, sort of two like that, and it comes forward and kind of goes there, and then there's two little divots at the back end sort of here. So this was from a big warthog male that's been running along here, and these are the two sort of dew claws on the back of his hoof, and then his hoof had kind of dug in as he ran. So he kind of went through. You can see here's another sort of step that he took, and then it carries on going forward. Now, interestingly enough, warthogs don't just run for the sake of nothing. So it's always good to look for signs like this, because that can lead us then to another sign. Potentially, maybe one of our leopards was hunting this warthog and chased it. The thing is, though, is this warthog obviously at some point was feeding in this area, because if you have a look here, down in between the grass, this is where it kind of started running from, and there inside is a little tuber. Now, I know that earlier today Ralph was talking about tubers this morning, the Bushman's grape tuber, and it looks like possibly might be another one of them. I'm trying to see if there is a Bushman's grape close by. Yes, there is. So it is from the Bushman's grape, and you can see where it's kind of dug out, and it would have used its snout to get in here and to kind of flick dirt as well as its feet, and it was trying to expose this, and you can actually see where it had started to kind of gnaw on that little tuber before it was interrupted. So whatever interrupted it from its meal, which is interesting. So we're going to have a little look around here and just have a double check. Maybe, just maybe, we'll get lucky and we'll find a track for a leopard. I know this is close to where they thought Tandi crossed over and came into this sort of section, and so maybe it was her that spooked this warthog and made it sort of run away. Now, while we kind of walk through here and negotiate this area and double check very carefully, I'm going to send you over to Steve, who's got an animal, well, that's not really an animal, it's got feathers, but makes a lot of noise.
Yes, we do. There's a blacksmith lapwing running through the burnt area. This is an area, we're on Cheetah Cut Line now, and on our eastern side is just a fire break that has been burnt for management purposes. And a lot of birds love to come into these areas to pick up on any insects that have been barbecued in the flames. Lots of animals do survive, lots of organisms do survive, but a fair number of them will actually get killed off, especially the insects and the much smaller organisms that aren't able to flee. You see this blacksmith lapwing running around. There was a ground scraper thrush doing something similar, and he chased him off, being the much bigger of the two birds. They are quite competitive, these blacksmith lapwings. And in a few days, this entire area will start to show little bits of green flush, because the fire actually stimulates the grass, and you'll see lots of the grazing animals in here. I mean, zebra often will move into a burnt area immediately after it's being burnt. You won't even see a green flush yet, and the zebra will be there. And it's for that reason why out in these areas, ecologically, if you're going to put a fire in, it needs to be very, very large. Obviously, when it comes to fire breaks aren't very large. They're quite long, but relatively narrow, and they're there for management sort of safety purposes. But if you want to stimulate a natural fire, you want a really large area. Otherwise, by burning, you put a lot of pressure on that area because the animals all move in to feed. And this lapwing is really enjoying running around looking for whatever fricasseed insects there might be. Hello, Cenac. You want to know what other birds would be attractive animals as well? Well, lots of studies are around out there, but when fires are actually happening, you'll see birds like the rollers, fork-tailed drongos, lots of the predatory birds will actually be right there above the smoke, close to the flames, catching the insects that are all very camouflaged, that are fleeing the scene. Very common to see that. And obviously they will also come in afterwards. They don't have the same sort of ability that these ground walking birds have to walk around and grab things on the ground, but they will move in. And there's lots of studies also that show that certain browsing animals will also move into areas shortly after fire, because the fire sometimes stimulates the browse on those areas. But other than that, nothing really, unless certain animals have maybe been burnt in the fire. There might be certain carcasses, but it's really, really small percentage. But a lot of these sort of insect-eating birds would be the primary movers. Zebras I've seen moving, and wildebeest also in a number of days. But zebra seem to turn. There's a fire, and the next day they will be here. Maybe we'll find some down the track. Who knows? Because we've had a fair bit of rain this year, people are putting the fire breaks in advance in case of a runaway fire coming in from the north. Sorry about that. A little bit of a heavy shoe. Well, someone else who's got a heavy shoe, Ralph Kirsten.
Thank you, Steve. And well, the search continues. I feel like I've been driving around the entire afternoon. I think I have. But well, sometimes it's required if you want to find those exciting animals. You do need to keep looking until you do. They don't always just pop out on the road in front of you. Sometimes you need to work a little bit harder for them, and well, then it does give you the satisfaction in the end. Now, quite a viper. Sometimes lions can roar in response to a leopard sawing. They would quite easily respond to a leopard sawing and actually move in to get rid of it. So they can roar. They can also go in and beat him up or kill him. So it can happen that they do that. They will take interest if a leopard soars. Sometimes they ignore it a little bit, and they know that they're not really that bothered. But they also can follow up and scavenge off leopards if they make a kill. So it's easy pickings if they can get to a leopard that is moving or has killed something before it gets it up a tree. they will definitely get rid of that leopard and steal his food. So lions are pretty adept scavengers as well. They can scavenge off leopards, cheetah, hyena, so it's not always as plain and simple as lions being the king of the jungle. They can be the scavengers of the jungle as well, or of the bush. But it's just optimism, or not optimism. What's the word? Opportunist. That's it. Thanks, Seb. Opportunism. That if they don't need to expend their energy, they can just go in and chase another predator off his kill. But then, having said that, they'll also kill that predator if he hangs around or if he's anywhere in the area. And lions are probably the biggest enemy of a lot of the predators, and especially like wild dogs. They take a heavy toll on wild dogs. If they come across their den, they'll kill all and sundry that they can get their paws and claws on. So it's not always rosy out here, and it can be quite tough for the lions, the leopards, and everybody else. And I just saw a track that I just wanted to just double check, because I thought it might have been a leopard track heading in the same direction as us. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. We'll still just carry on and have a look. What's that one there? We'll just have a look here. No, it was just the light. It looks like it was actually a kudu track. Okay, so I'm going to be just driving through here slowly. I'm heading now down towards Sandy Patch, checking for hukumuri or shudulu. And speaking of shudulu, it seems like Tristan has found one too.
Indeed I have, Ralph, and when one wants to find a leopard, one needs to be one like a leopard and stand on top of a termite mound and scout. But so far, no sign of anything. We've looked around, we've been kind of just double checking, trying to make sure that there's sort of some sign around here. We looked around where those warthog sort of were running, but unless there was no footprints for a kitty cat that we could find, which is okay. It might have been something else that spooked them, you never know. Could have been sort of an alarm call further away, it could have been another warthog, it could have been anything really that could have led to that warthog running away. So I'm still just kind of walking along, trying to find sort of some sections where it's a little bit more open that we can actually look for tracks. Now, Tom, you bring up an interesting question, one that I don't think any of us really have an answer to. I mean, we can sit here and hypothesize, and well, that's what guides do best. We love to throw a bit of jeopardy and a bit of hypothesis into the mix, even though we don't really kind of know exactly what's going to happen. But Tom, you say if Tingana dies and his territory becomes vacant, will Hosana or Tamba possibly take it back? Well, not take it back, but move into the area. Tom, it's possible, very possible. At the end of the day, you never know what's going to happen. One of those two boys could come in, and by the time Tingana sort of reaches the end of his sort of tether, he's going to be, well, the age of Hosana and Tamba will be prime in order to take over a territory of their own. The thing is, though, is it depends on how far those two boys are going to be pushed before that time happens. So at the moment, we know that Tamba and Hosana have already gone down into forays into Londolozi, Singita, towards the Sand River. And that means that, that Sand River area is a delightful place for a leopard. Let me tell you, it is like a 5-star hotel in your favorite city if you're a leopard. And so chances of them coming back here, if they can find a spot there, is pretty low. The thing is there, though, is that because it's such prime real estate, there's a lot of big males. So, you've got Anderson that's patrolling around down there. There's River Rocks male. There's, a couple others. I don't know them all on Londolozi, to be honest, but there's a couple others roaming around, and so that's going to make it difficult for Hosana and Tamba to really set up shop there. So it's possible that they could come back, but when you've got the likes of Quarantine and Hukamuri, who are big adult males as it is, and they are right on the fringes of Tingana's territory. They're the competing males at the moment in terms of a territory battle and a territory game with Tingana currently. it makes more sense that they're going to be sucked into the vacuum rather than an interloping male like sort of Hosana or Tamba. And I say that because I know they came from this area, but basically as a male leopard, once they've been kicked out or they've moved out, they then to come back are almost like an interloper. Even though they were born here, it doesn't give them a direct access to becoming the dominant male. So they're going to have to work hard then to kind of get back into this sort of section and be back into the dominant individuals. It's always a debatable question. I would love for one of them to come back. I really would. They're both incredibly amazing leopards, but the chances are not very good. If we look at what happened with Karula when she sort of disappeared, her two eldest daughters on the fringes of her territory just sucked inwards in the form of Shadow and Tandi. And so you'll have a situation where I would imagine a similar thing's going to happen with Quarantine and Hukamuri. They're both just going to suck in and fill that void. And you might find a little section or niche for one of those two young boys, but it'll be interesting to see how far they are by that period. Good. Now, we'll keep going. We keep trying to find some sort of sign of Tandi. So far, we can't find where she crossed, which is strange because no one's driven the firebreak area or this sort of block. So we'll just have to keep scratching. And while we do that, let's send you back across to Steve, who I think is on his way somewhere into this area, to give us a hand.
Yes, well, thanks, Tristan. We have found another black and white animal this afternoon, and this time it is the southern black tit, which is performing very beautifully for us, jumping around in the tree, performing behavior known as gleaning, where they actually run from branch to branch. There, you can hear him calling that. From branch to branch, very good behavior of the smaller birds, looking for any insects, noticeably caterpillars or anything that might be sort of trying to secret themselves on the branch itself. You see how he moves and has a look, constantly looking and calling as he goes. There's a little bird party of them here. There was a cardinal woodpecker and a couple other of these individuals moving through. He's moving through the leafless tree of a tambuati. All sorts of insects trying to hide in there, but none of them will escape the deliberate search that this bird is going through. Obviously some will, but it is one of those one of those interesting strategies that certain birds have. You quite often have other birds sort of hiding on the outside, waiting for insects to get flushed, and that's quite opportunistic in that behavior. So quite nice to see moving through the branches there, gleaning a different sort of strategy to what we see with the lapwing moving through the open area. All these sort of things enable these insect-eating birds to survive different kinds of abilities, or should we say times of stress, and all have their technique for getting their protein in. Indeed, Tristan, we will be coming to give you a hand. I'm trying to find out exactly where Tingana was left this morning, but I haven't yet been able to get an exact location. I know Ralph initially found him, but he was walking at some stage on the road, Craig says. So he was left somewhere in the block. So we're going to continue on. Maybe we'll be able to assist Tristan and the Bushwalk team with finding Tandi. And barring that, maybe we'll get some more information about exactly where Tingana might be. It is a beautiful afternoon back in the Sabi Sands. I spent a little bit of time down in the mountains in the Drakensberg, which was very cold, very, very cold, and then I spent some time at the coast seeing my mum, which was a lot warmer. But we believe there is a cold front coming through. But after a few days in Johannesburg, which is very cold, I don't think a cold front is going to bother me too much. Nice and fresh out here, but it's amazing how much in just about 10 days, how much more dry it's become. Okay, well, we are in the eastern side. We're going to head a little bit more south from where we are, and I believe Ralph is searching somewhere over in the west.
Yep, searching in the west. Now we've come right up to the western corner, the southwestern corner, and we're now going to take Vuyatela access, and I'm going to check all these little spots that Hukamuri likes to walk on. I'm going to check for tracks, I've just seen hyena tracks there. There's hyena tracks everywhere. But let's see if, because if Hukamuri is crossed in, he's come from the west and he's cut across here. So I'm just going to go along Voyatella access and see if I can find along these big game paths. I'll see if anywhere where he's crossed like this, and then maybe heading towards the central parts where we are at camp. Oh, look there, there's a crested barbet. I wonder if Seb can get him before he flies away. There he is. Oh, he's pretty, isn't he? And for me, the tattooed punks of the bush with a mohawk. Eh? What do you think? There we go. It's always nice to see a bit of a tattooed punk. Oh, just up here, we've also got a drongo who's now flitting off. And there he goes. It's always as you point a bird out that almost immediately they fly away. It's quite incredible how it always works out like that. Oh, Seb, I don't know if you can have a look in there. There's a whole bird party, but I can see some fire finches. There's very bright red colours. A little bit lower. They were all on the branch down there. There's a whole birding party in there. A little bit to your... there was somewhere there, but maybe they flitted off. They're always like the little blue wax bills. They're very... they hardly ever stay still, should I say. And maybe somewhere there near to the bottom... These little guys are so difficult to spot, even with the naked eye, and then now you're trying with the camera. It's not easy as well. So there's a little bit of a bird party in there. I don't know. They normally come together. Bottom right. We're getting instruction from Final Control. It's just gone behind the branch. Somewhere there. There, somewhere there. It's behind the branch, so we'll have to almost imagine the little firefinch there somewhere. No, it's always difficult with the little guys, and I've always so wanted to put the blue waxbills and the firefinches on because they are so beautiful, but you just never get to see them. They're like squirrels, where their heart must be beating at 1,000,000 miles per hour, and they never sit still. Oh well, we did try. That's all we can say. Nice trying there, Seb. Let's carry on. See if we can find any other interesting birds. Now this is one of the big game paths that I do need to check, just to see if Hukamuri's walked across here. Don't see there now. Now, CNAC, you're asking a good question. How many different finch species do we get here? We've got quite a few, CNAC. Let me actually just quickly access my book, and I'll tell you exactly how many. E, F, G, H, you see, and I'm also practicing my alphabet. Finch, where is finch? We've got fire finches, which are slightly different to the finches, but we've got a cuckoo finch, a cutthroat finch, a locust finch, a Melba finch, an African quail finch, the red-headed finch, scaly feathered finch, which you find up in Namibia, and then you go on to the finch larks and the fire finches. But how many finches exactly? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 different ones, and I'll show you what they all look like. 444. Let's have a quick look there. Now these are the finches, and then I'll just quickly show you what the fire finches and the blue waxbills look like that I'm trying to actually show you. Alright, these little finches here. Okay, so all these little finches, the finches themselves are a little bit bigger than the fire finches. So these are some of the, that's the Melba finch, the one up on top. So these are the finches. They're slightly bigger, as I say, than the fire finches, which are these. So these are the ones that I was actually looking at now. They are extremely red, but they are tiny little birds, tiny, and very similar to the blue waxbill. So you very often just see this very red color in the thicket and normally flitting around. Now I just want to see if I can see the blue waxbill. There it is. That's what the firefinches and the blue waxbills often moving together, and you hear them with their very high-pitched little squeals. We were hearing them there, and it's like a very, very fast call, and very, very high pitch as well. Both the waxbill and the firefinches. So that's very interesting, hey? But they're so tiny, you just see a very bright blue or red flash. All right. I am not going to stop this search for the leopards, but we will continue on stopping for everything else in between because, well, it would be rude not to.
Yeah, well, thanks, Ralph. We agree with you entirely there. We couldn't help but hear the sounds of this tapping in the distance, and we're just going to listen to it for a moment, but at the same time, allow you viewers to identify the bird. Please hashtag SafariLive. And also, if you could add in your identification if it is a male or female. You can hear that tapping. Imagine doing that with your face. In that collective term, when something is very annoying, feels like I'm tapping my head against a wall, doesn't it? And off it flew. Off it flew. I wonder if any of you out there, ladies and gentlemen, hashtag SafariLive, can tell me male or female and which bird that was. I'm sure you know which family it was. I'm sure you know what family it was. I'm not going to give it away if you don't know. I'm sure some of you out there have got it very quick and easy. For the newcomers, don't worry. Oh, sorry, Craigo. The newcomers, don't worry. We will be learning as we go along. Just moved into the area where I thought Tingana was this morning. I just popped my nose in, and there's nothing in that area, and there's not really any tracks going further than about 10 meters in. So it's possible that that's where they had him for a spell, and then he moved off. Ladybird, it is not a cardinal woodpecker. Cardinal woodpecker is very, very small. I know it's hard to gauge on that bird that we just saw a size. It's very hard to gauge. But also, what's interesting with this individual is it's the only sex that's completely black on the head. And there's a rather larger than the cardinal. Larger than the cardinal ladybird. Mafuta, you have got it 100% correct. Those of you out there who were thinking it was a female, it is 100% a female, and it is indeed a bearded woodpecker. Very easily seen by, let me show you the picture. Okay, I'll show it to you on the front here. I'm sorry. Let me just quickly give that a wipe. Sorry about that. Sorry, folks. These touch screens today. There is the male, not to be confused with the female. See, he's got the red on the cap there. But both the male and female have got this very strong beard stripe on the front. So I'm just going to scan. There's the male again. Scan again. There's the male. Look at that beautiful larvae in his mouth there. But what's interesting, I want you to notice here, is look how big the beak is. The beak is larger than the head. Can you see that? The head and the beak. It's the only woodpecker, when seen at a glance, in South Africa anyway, that the beak is longer than the head. So that's quite easy to identify from a distance. And then there's the female. There's the female with that very strong beard stripe down the throat there, and completely black on the head. And what a marvelous photo of her there eating some beetle larvae and grub. Probably one of the most sort of adapted or well-adapted individuals when it comes to feeding. No need to be walking around on the ground competing with others. Their beak being much larger than the other woodpeckers, they can knock into different types of wood and deeper into wood and pick up on bigger beetle larvae and grubs. So very, very specialized feeding behavior. The pecking, And I can't imagine smashing my head against a wall just to get a little bit of a snack. We do have it easy, don't we? We do have it very, very easy. And yes, Tristan, we are on our way towards you. And let's see exactly where Tristan is.
Well, Steve, we might want to hurry because we just got a report that Tingana is right in front of us, just up the road at Weaver's Nest Elephant Carcass. So it's a situation where I'm pretty sure if Steve goes there, he might get him. Apparently he's on a termite mound, and we found tracks for Tundi as well, which is really, very cool. So you can see here, Herbie is right here and showing us what's going on. But basically, Herbie, we have a sort of track of her dung a little bit and where she squatted in order to have it. So she kind of sat here, she went to the toilet, and then her track comes out, and then this is a nice little clear indication right here at David's foot of her track. So very small, but this is for Tundi, and this is from this morning. We can see the track, and well, her dung itself has got, it's still quite soft. If I push it, look, you can see this stick goes into it, but it has got a bit of a crust on it. So I would say from early this morning, and now she's kind of gone this way. The thing is, the size of this dung means she's very hungry and she's looking for food. So we're going to try and see if we can track her down. But this is great news. So Tingana just above us. There's some impalas right there as well. And we've got Tundi's tracks heading off. So we're going to try and get onto these tracks, see if we can maybe find her. It's been so long since I've had Tundi on foot, and it's probably one of my favorite leopards to track. And I'll tell you why. It's because tracking Tundi is one of the sort of biggest tests of your skill as a sort of person out here that tracks leopards. Anderson probably is the most challenging, but Tundi is very close to it, and it's not because she moves massive distances, but because she is insanely clever, and she'll just get up and move, and she kind of does these loops around you. And of course, there's always that sort of part that she's can be very aggressive, and so you've got to have your eyes on the back of your head when you're walking around near Tundi. And I have a funny feeling that she was here, alarm calls happen, or impalas or something saw her, and Tingana has moved to this area for that reason, and that's why he's close by. So I would say if Steve's going to head off towards Tingana, that he must pay very careful attention in case maybe Tundi is lying somewhere close to Tingana in that area. We're going to try to keep on the tracks here, and we'll be able to then work out where she went. She's heading towards Twin Dams, which is kind of roughly where we thought she might go. We thought maybe Treehouse, and then we were going to work our way east towards Twin Dams, which is the perfect idea as it's turned out, because we've now found her tracks, and they come directly from where that termite mound with the warthog sort of running tracks are. So she must have crossed straight over there and in a diagonal cut across the block through the long grass and came out onto Weaver's Nest. So it's the perfect kind of thing for us to have found. And the tracks, well, the ground here is nice and soft. We've got a nice sort of powdery ground. Should have we're just going to get to them, and we're going to keep our eyes sort of focused forward, and we're just going to try and walk nice and slowly, because Tundi is very perceptive to noise. If she hears something, she's definitely going to get up and move a little bit. She's not the easiest to find, and like I say, if you do find her and she's in a bad mood, well, it's never the best situation either. I know of a couple of trackers who have felt the wrath of Tundi on foot and have not come out on the good side of it. They've ended up coming out shaking and not looking very well at all. Good. Now, we're going to carry on focusing because I want to try and see exactly where she went. And while I do that, let's send you back across to Ralph, who I think is staring at the tallest animal that has spots.
Yes, well, that we are. And we're also watching these little red-billed oxpeckers doing their very comb-like sifting through the fur or the hair of this giraffe, checking for parasites. And it's wonderful to watch. Look how they snap backwards and forwards. And that's one of the differences between a red-billed oxpecker and a yellow-billed oxpecker, because these guys do this combing-like motion, and then they catch the parasites as they move through. Whereas the yellow-billed oxpeckers, they literally pick the parasites off one by one. So they don't do this like what the red-billed oxpecker is doing. But it's fascinating to watch. And yellow-bills, you don't also find them as regularly on giraffe and impala and kudu, etc. It's mostly a buffalo that they hang on. So when you hear yellow-billed oxpecker calls, generally there's buffalo close by. So, and there it looks like he's got a bit of a scar on his neck. It's a very good looking giraffe, this. It's a nice old bull. Look at his neck. And he's really giving us a show. So, Ruby, you nice and excited that we found giraffe. Well, and this one is just posing for us perfectly. It's wonderful, and he's just ruminating a bit. Yeah, he's chewing. There comes an oxpecker as well. Look at that. Now, Mrs. Hello, sorry, I missed, I've got my game drive radio on as well, and there's all sorts of things going on with the leopards, and I didn't quite get that comment. So you're saying it's so interesting how so many animals have symbiotic relationships. Absolutely. So what is the definition of a symbiotic relationship, if you were wondering? It means that there's, it's not always mutually beneficial. It's a relationship between two organisms going on through life. So in this effect here, we've got a relationship with a red-billed oxpecker and a giraffe, and it's over an extended period of time. So you generally find them together, and at the moment we would say that this is mutualistic because they're both gaining from it. The giraffe gets his parasites removed, and the red-billed oxpecker gains some food. And they can also act as alarm signals for the giraffe as well, because they'll alarm if they spot any danger coming along. They can, however, turn this relationship into parasitism, because they might pick off some of those ticks, and then there's a little wound that is created, and they'll actually keep that wound open, because what are they? They are sanguinivores, which means that they feed on blood. So the ticks and parasites that they eat are full of blood, having gorged themselves on whatever the host was, whether it be a giraffe or a kudu or impala. In this case, the giraffe. But they will drink the giraffe's blood directly if they get a chance as well. So not always mutually beneficial. In fact, sometimes only the oxpecker can benefits from the relationship, and the symbiotic relationship at that. You see, sometimes they also go up top onto the callus and onto the ossicones or ossicles at top and sort of clean their bill, and so it's very, very interesting. But that was wonderful to see. And that giraffe has now moved behind this thicket. Now, I hear that it seems Tingana, the Duke of Djuma, has been found, and apparently so has Tandi and Tlalamba. So, I think Steve is on his way to where Tingana is, and I'm thinking I'm going to make my way towards where Tandi and Tlalamba are. And guess where it is? It's in the area of Scuba Steve, up there by Buffels Hook Dam. So I'm just going to slowly start making my way over there, and when the radio goes quiet, I'll just find out if I can make my way in there, because obviously I haven't found those cats, so I'm not in charge of the sighting, and I can't just go barging my way in there. I do need to find out who's in line to go and see them, and I'll just try and get ourselves a little bit of a spot in the queue, because I'm sure everybody's excited to see Tandi and Tlalamba, as we are. So I'm not promising anything, but it is very promising, because it seems they've spotted them, but they're right on the border of the premises, so right up near Buffels Hook Dam, or Waterhole, which is right in our northeastern corner. At the moment, I'm in the northwestern corner. So I'm going to make my way along the boundary, and as I say, while I'm busy going along the way, I'll just see if I can get us a spot in the queue. I'm still working here though where Hukamuri and Shudulu like to walk, so I'm just going to go slowly, because it would be better if we find our own cat, actually. So going along slowly is the name of the game if you want to spot animals in the bush, and well, when you're on bushwalk, you just have to do it anyway.
We do. We can't go very fast on bushwalk at all, particularly when you're tracking animals, although our tracking has ended already, and I'll tell you why. It's because Thandi and Tlhalamba have been spotted, and I actually cannot believe where they've been spotted, considering where we're following the tracks now. We're on the southern boundary at Weaver's Nest. They've just been spotted pretty much on the eastern side of Buffelshoek Dam, which is a complete opposite end of Djuma. So for some reason, Thandi was on a serious mission today and has walked absolutely miles northwest, or northeast should I say, and has found herself right in the northeastern corner of Djuma itself. Now, whether or not Ralph or Steve is going to be able to get to her, because what I heard was she was going off the dam into the drainage line there, and the drainage line there is, well, nothing short of an absolute nightmare in order to follow a leopard. So it's going to be tough for whoever found her to keep visual of her. I don't know if they're going to be that successful, but you never know. Hopefully it'll be the case, and hopefully Ralph or Steve will be able to get to both the leopard sightings that are around at the moment. Well, Bombo Girl, there's a very simple reason for it, and that is that when leopards defecate, defecating on the road or on a big game path serves a very clear signal to any other leopard. We know that leopards and lions, or most cats, will like to walk on big game paths or roads. It's much more convenient, it's out of the grass, they don't have to worry about ticks and all those kind of things. And so when they go onto the road, if they defecate there, 99% of the time, any other leopard within that area is going to pretty much use that section. So it's a very clear beacon to those leopards. Don't come here, this is my territory. So Thandi's saying to any other female, whether it be Sabui, Shidulu, any other female that could potentially be around here, this is my territory. Don't come any further. And also signifies to the male which females are around and whether he kind of needs to be concerned if she's in heat. It's a way of kind of attracting the male's attention, or if we're in a situation where he kind of gets into just to know where his sort of females are hanging out. Now, we have got a slight problem here because David has got to try and get through here, and I forgot completely that he has a massive aerial. So I'm going to try and hold some trees for David to come through. David, will that be all right for you? I think you'll be okay. So this is the things we do for our cameramen, is hold these kind of branches and make sure that they get through. So sorry about me disappearing out of frame there for a second. Like I said, I was just trying to help David. Good, so we're going to carry on, see what else we can find. So far, lots of things have just kind of started to happen, and so maybe we'll find some more tracks that we can follow up on, or just anything that's really out here. It's so nice just to be on foot again in the middle of Africa. And so while we do that, let's send you back across to Steve and find out what his position is and which leopard he's heading to.
Well, we seem to have just seen the bushwalk team over there. Well, we were just around the corner here. I hadn't heard that Tingana had been found, so we decided to turn around because Thandi got found up in the west, up in the north, and we were right here, and Tingana's just up ahead here. We're going to move into that sighting instead, and Ralph's much closer up to the north than we are, so he's going to go follow up on Thandi and Tlhalamba. Hey, Herbie. Hey, and I'm sure Tristan is loving being back on foot. Nice to see you. Are you well? Okay, well there's Herbie, and the rest of them are coming behind. We're going to move off and move into the Tingana sighting, which is just up ahead. Exciting to see the Duke. I heard he's been a little bit of a battle. A little bit of a battle royale. Not sure what has happened exactly, but I just saw some videos of his ear, and his left front foot didn't look very good in the video I saw. But this morning, Craig, you said you saw him walking. No problem, eh? Craig didn't notice any limp on him this morning. I was watching the show, but when I saw him sitting and his left ear is looking a little bit, sorry, his right ear looking a little bit lopsided. Who knows what happened? Who knows what happened? I don't think he will be able to tell us, or we won't be able to understand, should I say. So we're just coming up soon. I know that there's at least one, maybe two other vehicles there. There, I can see them. I'm just going to talk to them. Okay, talk to them in a second. So he's just off to the right-hand side. I'm sure we'll get a view of him in a second. The radio's just busy at the moment. There he is, on top of the termite mound. How's that, Craigo? All right. There he is. The Duke with his droopy right ear. 2 stations with Tingana on Weaver's Nest. So where we were checking before, as we were coming out of the drainage, we started hearing some radio chatter, and then we saw some tracks kind of heading in this direction. But then suddenly, you know, we heard the call on the radio of Tundi being found up in the north, and we thought, well, let's go and check that out. But he was right here. Right here. He's walked quite a distance. Well, not quite a distance, but definitely a few kilometers from this morning. And he is looking a little bit lopsided. I'm sure that ear will sort itself out, but there's no noticeable sort of bleeding that I can see on him or saw this morning on the video. Just going to move up a little bit, put my nose in, Craig, because there's another vehicle coming. Rav, he doesn't look too happy. No, he looks a little bit uncomfortable, doesn't he? I'm just moving a little bit to make some space. Another vehicle's going to come join us. We're in a really nice position to be able to get a couple vehicles in here without influencing. There he is, on top of a termite mound, a classic leopard pose, and he melts into the background quite nicely. Even better now that his ear is permanently down. Sorry, Craig, I forgot to take my foot off the brake. Sorry about that movement. I do apologize. That is 100% my fault. Ladybird, I have no idea. Apparently when Hukumuri was first seen by people years ago, he had a droopy ear. And it seems to have fixed itself, or maybe both of his ears are now droopy. It's hard to tell. I honestly couldn't tell you if it's just going to fix itself or what's going to happen. I can't even tell you what's happened, but definitely something has happened to him. It's hard to see with all the fur on there, but definitely in the video from earlier this week, he was limping his left front leg. Very uncomfortable. But he is surveying his dukedom. So interesting that the bushwalk team can be following up on tracks of Tundi, and then out of nowhere she's right up in the northeast at Buffelshoek Dam. Just to show you. And it doesn't take them that long to cover these huge distances. I mean, we do these walks during the day ourselves, but the energy expended is quite high, and it's obviously not something that they do in the summer months, because it's way too much energy expended there. But in the winter months, I mean, even Tingana has moved from where he was this morning, which is why I'm thinking when we popped our nose into that little spot, that is where he was this morning, because the tracks only went about 10 meters into a termite mound and then they disappeared. Beautiful. Golden light is just coming through. Goat Cider, you think he looks as tough as ever. He looks even tougher now with his little lopsided ear. I mean, he's been calling apparently in the middle of the day, calling whenever he can. I believe, well, James was discussing it with me, I believe it's more of a bluff than anything. You know, I don't know if he's physically fit to compete with anyone today or in a couple of days. You know, unbelievably resilient, these cats, and they can go through enormous injury and still come out the other end. But during their recovery period, every boxer needs a few days grace to lick and look after the wounds. But we don't know what has transpired. James seems to think there might have been hyena involvement. Could it be another male leopard? I just got back this morning, so I couldn't tell you. I'm going to have to do a little bit of catching up. Craigo, what are your thoughts? Craig's not sure. What are the viewers' thoughts? #SafariLive. What happened to the Duke of Djuma? We never know. We don't see any wounds. The Mrs. Anom, you reckon it was the wild dogs? Well, he was interacting with them a few times last week. Could one have nipped him on the ear? I think if one did, I mean, because he was scavenging from those two wild dog, I doubt they would have posed too much of a threat to him. He would easily have killed one of them. But then, I don't know, 2 wild dogs might be a match. You would hope not. You might hear a vehicle moving now. It's just Texan from Voyatela moving forward. Get another view. So, and dogs are vicious sort of individuals, but for them to come to blows, 2 of them to come to blows with a male leopard would be interesting. Interesting to see that happen. A single hyena, I think, would think twice. So it'll take at least 3 or 4 wild dogs to see off a single hyena, just for the numbers. So maybe it was just a little scuffle. If it was, I think we might find a wild dog somewhere. Something of that kind. Hyena seems to just bear their wounds very well if they do get into an altercation. Okay, well, Tristan's been here for the last 10 days while I've been away, so let's go and see what his thoughts are on the floppy-eared Duke of Djuma.
Well, Steve, I mean, I saw him this morning and we discussed it, I suppose, briefly, really, because I wasn't out for very long this morning, given the way things went. But difficult to say. I mean, as guides, as James always says, we always speculate and always have an opinion, but very seldom do we actually know really what happened. And often our opinions are complete nonsense and we actually don't get it right at all. But for me, it does. I personally do not think that is another leopard that has attacked him. There's just not enough damage and cuts and little scrapes. You know, when a leopard has a fight, claws are out, teeth are out, and those claws nick anywhere, on the ears, on the nose. You generally get these little scratches on the nose, little blood coming from the ears. I know he does have, I think James said he has got like a little sort of matted fur and a cut here on his shoulder. So I wonder if maybe hunting that warthog, he didn't get hit right here on the shoulder, quite a hard blow, and maybe one of those little tushes just nicked him on the sort of shoulder, and that's why he's got a bit of a sore shoulder and sort of ear area. It's interesting though, because his standing up is really difficult for him at the moment. So he like tries to get up and it's really not that great. So it seems like a shoulder injury. I'll agree with James on that. But what actually happened, difficult to say. I mean, you know, like I say, we speculate, but we don't really know. But something like that to me is more sort of blunt force trauma into the sort of shoulder rather than an actual sort of physical cut and scrape that we see from, you know, a leopard fight. It could have been a leopard. Who knows? The thing is, though, is that Hukumuri is nowhere near this area at the moment. So if he did fight with a leopard, who was it and why was he fighting with it? Hopefully it wasn't any of our young boys like Hosano Tamba. I know that neither of them have actually been seen since a few days ago, as far as I can work out. And so, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. But he'll come right, I'm pretty sure. It's not significant enough. If he can walk the way he was walking this morning, then he most certainly can hunt, and most certainly will be able to get into trees and up termite mounds and those kind of things for safety. So I think he's pretty much in good shape. I don't think he's got too much to stress about or worry about at this stage. In terms of his ear, well, I think his ear will come right. I mean, we've seen damage like that on leopards before. Hukumuri is probably the latest example, which I discussed this morning. It's almost like there's just like a kind of almost a pinch in the nerve, and it sort of just goes a bit lame for a while, and then the ear just perks up. I remember Hukumuri went from having this droopy ear like Tingana to having this perky little ear overnight. And so it does kind of happen that they get this and then it comes right again. I have seen it on Salahesh before. I've seen it on Intima before. And so they do get this sort of kind of droop that happens if they get an impact there, and then it comes right again. It's almost like it gets bruised and sore, and the muscle just kind of relaxes around that area. So it's interesting. I mean, hopefully, you know, everything will be fine. He's just regained so much condition, and when I arrived here, he just was an absolute sort of picture of beauty. It'll be a shame now if he starts to regress back to what he was a few months ago. Good, well, we'll carry on. We're going to slowly start winding our way home. It's a beautiful, beautiful evening. Conditions are perfect to just kind of finish up our afternoon. Hopefully we'll find something interesting in this golden light. While we do that, though, I believe Ralph is approaching the sort of leopard that he seeks, and hopefully he's also going to get some luck after all his hard work.
Well, I definitely hope that we are going to get lucky, everybody. They did have Tanji and Tlalamba, but she walked into the block, and so there's two other vehicles. They've gone to intercept her, and I thought I'll just come into the block itself just to check and drive along some of these big game paths that she was walking along, heading in a straight northerly direction. So we're just trying to catch up with her. It is her and Tlalamba walking together, so we're just moving along slowly here and just trying to see if we can get a visual on her, and just checking in every direction as well, because they did lose sight of her. So I'm assuming that she was walking along this game path, and we're just trying to stick with it as well. It's not always as easy as that, because, you know, we've got all these branches and trees that we do need to try and avoid too, as you can see here. Seb, you'll be alright with that little one, eh? Yeah. It should be fine. And then just keeping an eye out in each direction, also stopping just to check the termite mounds, whether they've just stopped to rest up on top as well. And I will also get radio. They'll let me know on the radio if they spot her that she's popped out. And if I find her, then I can also bring her in. So it's great. We've got a little bit of a team effort. Right, so I'm going to continue on looking for this leopard, but I think let's send you over to Steve, who obviously is with the Duke.
Thanks, Ralph. Good luck with that. I know that the area that she's moved into, that sort of drainage depression, is an area where we lost the Unkahumas a couple weeks back. Not a very easy area to navigate. If you're a leopard, it's very easy. If you're a Land Rover, not so easy. So good luck with that search. We are still half on the road, so this was a much easier leopard to find, thanks to the bushwalk team and the other guides out. Sian, you want to know a very interesting question about, are there leopards that never hold territory and remain nomadic? It's very possible, especially with smaller males. There was a smaller male who moved through here 2 months or so ago, whose name was Kwatile, which translated means the angry one. And he was a very small male. I mean, I remember seeing him and thinking it was a female initially, and then obviously certain body parts indicated otherwise. But the information we got from some viewers who are very well versed with the movings around of animals. Oh, here we go. There we go. That's a nice yawn. And he was actually a 4 or 5-year-old male or something, 4-year-old male, and he was tiny for his age. So a chance of a male leopard like that holding a territory against a male leopard of this size is very unlikely. But that sort of information, you know, I'm still learning a lot about leopards, and you know, I've read a lot in the books, and I'm seeing things every day that are changing that mindset. A little bit of a growl there when he did that. So I wonder if that hurt him to yawn like that. Is he going to get up now? And generally when cats do that, they make some form of movement. So, yes, yeah, you know, if you're not a big enough animal to hold a territory, you've got no other option but to be a nomad, bouncing between areas and sort of moving where the wind blows, you know. And if you get a little bit of angst from a territorial individual, well, then you move. So it's not the easiest life to have, because you're constantly watching your back, constantly watching your was beautiful. Now, he was very rude and interrupted me there, didn't he, Craig? How beautiful is that, to see the Duke doing that? And in the video I saw, he almost couldn't stand on his right foot, or his left foot, which is something you often see leopards do, standing and then leaning into that sort of territorial call. Now he's kind of watching in the distance, is anyone going to respond? But by being territorial, like Tingana is doing now, and by calling with all of your might and all of your soul, any individual nearby who does not want to challenge is going to move off. A nomad, for example, here he comes, is going to move off. So being territorial, his left foot is still not okay. Very gingerly putting it down in front of him. He licks it. There's a bit of a wound on the top there. Tom, it is definitely one of my favourite sounds. I agree with you. Definitely hope we can get a bit of a look at the top of his foot there, Craig. There's a wound on the top of his foot, just above his dew claw, which he seems to be favouring. And see, it's not just a wound, it's a bit swollen. You see his whole left foot actually looks... Sorry about the back of the vehicle, folks. I'm going to turn the car around now. Just give a quick little update on the radio at the same time. So yeah, I don't know what happened. It got bitten by something, perhaps, or got injured in a fight. The other individual caught it in his teeth, perhaps. It's really hard to say. There we go, he's going to sit down again. And not for long. Okay, well, excuse me, Craig's going to focus in there, and I'm just going to announce that he's on the move. Stations Tingana's up and mobile south along Weaver's Nest. One station on lock. Let's see if he's going to do any territorial markings now. You're most welcome. Just I would come along Weaver's Net, or wherever you're coming from. Come from the south towards Elephant Carcass. He's about to hit that drainage now. I'll keep you posted. So he's still got a little bit of energy to scent mark. He's got enough energy to call. So essentially, by doing all of this, he's advertising that he's still here. That urine smell and that call, there's nothing in that to indicate that he's injured. So any other individual who walks here in the morning or tomorrow and smells that, or hears that when he calls, is going to think, oh, this is a really big, strong male. Rather avoid him. You don't know that he's injured and lying down and maybe badly injured. He's definitely not showing himself to be the most formidable at the moment, is he? He's walking off the limp though. Definitely, look how swollen that left front leg is. And you all see it at home. He's walking it out though, but it definitely looks a little bit more swollen towards the back as well. So he seems to be getting into his stride. Just moving down towards the drainage area. This is an area we spent a lot of time with him. My Safari indeed. He is handling like an absolute trooper. Absolute trooper. That's what you do. There we go. He's going to do it again. Sorry, Craigo. He's still got time to spray. And being territorial like this requires, because they're using urine, they need to drink regularly. So I'm not sure, maybe that's his plan now. Maybe he's going to head off somewhere to drink. If he cuts a beeline into the drainage and he goes right now, he's going to head towards Treehouse Dam. You can hear Franklin has just spotted him. And if he goes left from here, he's going to head towards Twin Dams. Peter Viper, that's a very good question. You know, I mean, are the injuries enough to prevent him from hunting? And that is one of the reasons why leopards avoid confrontation. It's one of the reasons why they avoid getting into any conflicts, because if they get injured, it can affect their hunting abilities. Even a bite from another animal on one of their back legs or one of their front legs could prevent them escaping up a tree, and could prevent them also doing the physical movement of catching something. So I'm not going to say that it makes him incapable of hunting, but it definitely lessens his ability to be on his game. It's the same as me suggesting if you twist your ankle, are you going to be able to compete in a race? Or even when I tore ligaments in my ankle, was I able to walk from the living room to the kitchen with a cup of tea in my hand? It was impossible. It was impossible. You had to hop around. I had to strategically put tables all the way along to put the tea on so that I could get it to the living room. So it impedes you definitely. So being injured is not ideal. Not ideal. But the most important thing he'll need to do is to recover enough so he can climb a tree to evade competition. And I can smell him. But he would still try. He would most certainly still try. And they still have the ability of stealth. We are surrounded by the smell of popcorn. Quite a lovely smell, in fact. Like the sound of a leopard soaring in the African bush is the best sound out here. The smell of their urine is as well. So he seems to be walking it off a bit. He's definitely on the move. Territorial line. A couple of days it really lingers. A couple of days I've noticed. If there's any sort of moisture or condensation, it generally washes away. So that's why they have to be redone and again and again. But 2, 3, 4 days perhaps, leopard smell can linger depending on the climatic conditions. Okay, what's he going to do? He's deciding which is the closest watering hole. I think he's going to decide that Treehouse Dam is in fact the best way. I'd like to get in front of him, but I don't want to influence him in any way. Okay, well, we're going to stay with Tingana, see where he goes to. I'm sure he's going to go drink. Drinking is more important at the moment than eating, because you will die after a day or two without water. He can go for 2 weeks without eating. So while he's sent marks, let's go back up to Ralph, see if he's had any luck.
No luck yet, but we did have a little clue. We had some Franklin's alarm calling as well as a squirrel, but he wasn't really into it that much, so not convinced, but it might be a little sign that we are getting closer to them. Once they're in the block here, it's a little bit of hit and miss, so I'm just running a slight search pattern, and after that I'm going to give up because I'm not going to just drive around off-road for no reason, just searching randomly. So she was here, she was in the area, and that's why I'm just trying my best to relocate, but as I say, I won't carry on for too much longer. At least here it's a little bit more open, but let's just stop for a second and just listen out. It's a beautiful evening. Look at that sunset right now hitting the horizon, as we just have a little bit of quiet moment just to see if there's anything that spots these two leopards and gives away their position. It's very quiet, like Tristan was saying earlier. It's quite eerie actually. And this is also the little bit of calm before the storm, because we've got another massive cold front that has hit land in Cape Town. So it's on its way up here, and today has been rather warm. It's probably all this warm air being pushed in front or between the two cold fronts, because we've just come out of one and now we're going to be heading into another. But today has warmed up substantially, and I think it's because of the warm air being pressed forward in front. But for now, super quiet, and so I'm just going to run a bit of a line along the bush here, a little bit more in the open, and see if we come right. If we don't, well, we've tried our best. The other guys are still checking along the road to see if she pops out, but we're just gonna carry on along here. Now, that sun having just dropped down below the horizon, that means that it's time for the bushwalk team to be heading back towards camp. So let's head on over to them and have a last little hurrah.
Well, Ralph, we're not quite at camp yet. We're still very far, actually, from camp, so we're going to have to hustle a little bit to get closer. But the reason why we're far is because this might sound ridiculous, but we're still tracking Thandi for the simple reason that any leopard that walks the distance that she's walked today, picks up a cub and then backtracks herself, is pretty much, in my opinion and Herbie's opinion, a guaranteed sort of kill site somewhere that she's taking Tlalamba back to. And so we're trying to track her while Ralph kind of tries backtracking her, and hopefully somewhere in the middle we're going to be able to find her with Ralph and find maybe where she's got a kill, because I'm almost 90% sure, Herbie's 100% sure, I'm 90% sure, David's on the fence. David, are you on the fence, or you agree with us? David agrees with us as well, that she's got a kill somewhere in these areas. So what we're doing is we're just literally trying to kind of walk the Mulawati system. We have her tracks coming right north up the system and walking on this sort of eastern bank, just kind of cutting straight northwards. In fact, we're heading right to where she had the den for a very long period of time, and so I'm hoping that maybe she made a kill somewhere in this general vicinity, and maybe with us walking this direction and our ears and the fact that we're walking, we're much quieter, we can hear alarm calls, and then try and get sort of Ralph into this position, and hopefully we can, between the two of us, find Thandi and Tlalamba. And the reason why I want to do it is, like I say, is because if she's got a kill, obviously it's going to be much easier then to try and find her tomorrow morning, as well as the fact that it's, well, a leopard on a kill, and that's a really cool thing to see. And we know that from that sort of size of her defecation that she really does need a bit of a meal. It's a very small kind of piece of dung that she's dropped, and so I'm hoping from there she walked all the way through, killed something, is now gone to the sort of cub, fetching it and bringing it back in order to start feeding off it. So it's vitally important that we kind of risk the light a little bit to try and just see exactly where she's gone. Also, I can't help myself when there's a mystery like that, and when you've got that feeling, it just makes kind of driving, well, makes you want to drive and kind of get and find that leopard and sort of confirm your suspicions. So we'll see how it goes. Herbie, like I say, is 100% convinced, and I trust Herbie probably more than most when it comes to the sort of behavior, particularly of our leopards on Djuma. So that's why we're still trying to give it one last crack and hope that we can find them. So we've still got a long way to go. We only probably, well, we're south of the Wahlberg's nest and the sun's already down, so we're going to have to hustle a little bit. But anyway, while we kind of move quickly through the Mulawati and scan as we go, let's send you back across to Steve and the Duke roaming down the road.
Well, the Duke, you can just see behind that branch, just moving a little bit. There he is. He's probably doing some well-necessary grooming. He had a moment of interest as he looked in the distance, and I think he might have spotted something, but then he lay back down again, and as leopards do, he's disappeared into the vegetation. So to jump back onto what we were talking about, drinking is more important for him, but a good meal, a good protein meal. It's amazing what they do, how these animals can heal themselves with their belly full of food. And that's why lions do very, very well, because they can get injured, but their pride members can assist in the hunting. I've told the story before, but of a female lioness who had a broken shoulder. She could barely move, and she had a sister who just kept hunting for her, and she got meal after meal after meal. The next thing, one day she was just walking as if nothing had happened. No operation, no surgery, just off you go again. So very interesting how the protein and the meal can really just sort out the bodily process. Obviously there's a degree to which that does and doesn't work, but I mean, I think his foot will heal. There's antibiotic properties inside the saliva, so there seemed to be a little bit of an open wound on the top of the foot at one stage there, but through licking it and licking it and licking it, they do actually assist in coagulating the blood and in healing whatever infection might be inside. Incredibly resilient animals, leopards and lions, living out in these wild areas. Teeth and claws are a constant sort of thing in their life, and so they are equipped with the necessary sort of antibodies to protect themselves. Obviously it takes time, and you don't just shake it off and walk off, but it'd be very interesting to know exactly what went down. Wow, Gemma, that is a very interesting question. I have no idea. The story I've always been told is cats have 9 lives. I've never really known about the age like dogs and how many years, dog years. No idea. Craig? Craig doesn't know. No idea, Gemma. I'm sorry. But we might move forward another half a meter or so to see if we can get another view of him, because he is quite flat right now and he is busy cleaning himself. So hold on a second. I don't think we're going to get too much of a better look. We might, though. Here we go. As soon as we moved, he decided it's time. He's licked himself enough to get up and start moving. There he is. He's not looking very happy, is he? But for his age, he's had an absolutely splendid career. And his time is not over yet, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry, he's still calling, he's still holding his own. Earlier this year when he wasn't calling, we believe he was a little bit ill, a little bit sick. Let me move forward there, Craiger, or back, what do you prefer? Move forward. He's found himself a pile of poo right down my alley. Is it okay? Minamu, it's a very good chance. I don't know if Tandi and Tingana would be mating at the moment. I personally believe that Tlalamba is still too young. But, you know, there's been some stories. Some of the viewers have told me that Shadow was mating at a certain time after her cubs were born, and I'm perplexed at the amount that is still coming up in the information on the show and what people are seeing that leopards are doing. But, you know, he's definitely the territory holder and will mate with whichever females are available. We haven't seen it, but I'm sure if she comes into estrus, he'll be definitely very keen. Sorry, Craig, I've put you in a very shoddy position there. Forward a little bit more. Would that help? Might do. Might do. Say when. Good. So he's found some dung. We don't know what exactly. Or was he licking his foot? It's hard to say sometimes. It's hard to say sometimes with the leopards walking around here. If they found a pile of buffalo dung, which they seem to thoroughly enjoy. So there would definitely be some vegetarian meal in there for him, plus lots of bacteria and microorganisms. And the microorganisms themselves are a protein. I know it might sound quite gross, but we'll definitely tide him back for a day or two. And at the same time, if they roll in it, help to mask his scent, to improve his ability to hunt. Okay, well, we're not going anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to stick with the Duke as long as we can. And I believe Ralph is still on the search for Tandi and Tlalamba.
The search is on, everybody. The search is on. We're still looking, searching, as we always do every single day, twice a day, mornings and afternoons. So we never get tired of it. It never gets old. And that's what we do. So I've now driven quite a lot, quite extensively in this block, which is just west of Hyena Road. So this is the area that Thandi and Tlalamba, well, especially Tlalamba, frequents, where Thandi leaves her little cub. And Thandi does move around obviously quite a lot in a lot larger area, but she does come back frequently to get Tlalamba. Now, if Thandi has made a kill in this block from here, it's going to be very difficult for us to find it. The best bet then would have been the bushwalk team, because for us driving in a block, bundu bashing, firstly it's not ideal, because you don't want to be doing that just randomly. You can cause quite a lot of damage to your vehicle as well as the bush as well, so you don't want to do that too much. So for us it's now just a bit of looping around and see if we can come lucky, get lucky in the areas where she does like to move around. Maybe she also came back onto the road, that's why I've just come back onto the road myself, and now we just keep looping as well, and we'll see whatever else we can find along the way as well. Now, Bella, you want me to think of my most embarrassing bush moment? Well, Bella, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but one of the things that I had done when I was in Namibia, I can't remember which exact eagle it was, but I think it was a black eagle. And we were driving around one game reserve in Namibia, and somebody asked me, I'm pretty sure it was black eagle or Vero's eagle, the black eagle with the white cross on its back, very big bird, big eagle, and also very, very beautiful as well. And they asked me about the black eagle, and I immediately said, no, well, you know what, it's a beautiful bird, but we don't get any here. They don't occur here, so there's no chance of us seeing one. And literally not even 5 minutes later, this guest was shouting in the back of the vehicle, there's a black eagle, black eagle. And I was like, no, there's none, they don't occur here. And I was basically telling her off. And when I took my binos out and I looked at this eagle, lo and behold, it was a black eagle. So I had to really eat humble pie, and ever since then I've always said they normally don't occur here, but you never know, they have wings, you can always have the possibility of that. So I learned my lesson that day, especially with birds, of saying there's no chance you can see that here. And so that was one of my embarrassing moments. Another embarrassing moment, I would say, that was actually more so from the guest's perspective, but I was also slightly embarrassed because of the instructions that I'd given them. Because in the Namib, when we used to go camping, obviously there's wild areas that there's no infrastructure where we camp wild, and we have our water and we have our tents, and we're totally autonomous. So when we get to spots, I normally take out the spade and the toilet paper with matches inside the toilet paper, and I explain to people that is the toilet, the manual toilet. You take the spade, you dig your hole big enough for what you need to do, you do your business, and afterwards you put the toilet paper in the hole, you light it, and once it's finished burning, you close the hole. So quite a simple exercise, I must say, and it normally goes off without a problem. But on this one time, one of the ladies had taken the toilet paper and the spade and the matches, and she had gone quite far behind a nice big granite rock and found a perfect spot to do what she needed to do. But unfortunately on this day there was quite a lot of wind, and she was behind a big rock, but there was also some very dry grass near to her. So I'm sure you can already see where the story is going. Anyway, so she did what she needed to do, and she lit the toilet paper, and because there was so much wind, and toilet paper is quite light when it burns, especially it likes to sort of fly up in the air, it landed up in this dry grass, and with the wind it obviously very quickly caught fire. And so I just heard this shouting, and I saw this lady jumping with her pants at her ankles, screaming that she had set the felt on fire. So I came running and had to put the fire out, but obviously also just to allow the lady to cover up as well. Luckily, I managed to put the fire out, actually getting out of control. But ever since then, once again, I've learned from that experience, and then after that had to just give people a bit of a fire warning as well as wind, and try not to let people go anywhere to the toilet where there might be a charm set. It was quite embarrassing for both of us. So that's two of my little embarrassing moments. Right, something that's not very embarrassing is Mr. Tingana, although with his floppy ear, maybe he does feel a little bit.
Yes, he is a little bit embarrassed this afternoon, the old Duke. He walked completely around a big group of impala without any interest in them at all. Maybe he knew he'd get spotted. He didn't try we've seen him, how patient he can be. And he kind of just walked blasely past them, and then they started alarm calling. So he's definitely not looking for a group of impala. He would definitely try and sneak out something a lot easier. And that's one of the reasons why these animals like to hang out in groups. Makes it harder to be picked out individually. There he is. He's just moving in front of us there, about to come past that fallen branch. But he's heading steadily south towards our southern boundary. Definitely seems to have walked off his limp a lot. Now that's saying get up and walk it off. There's a lot to add. Doesn't seem to be holding his shoulders as high as he normally does he? He stops every now and again to survey. He's probably hoping he's going to startle a little steenbok or a duiker or maybe a scrub hare. That will be doing very nicely. Okay, well, as we start following him in the darkness, I'm pretty sure the bushwalk team has probably got a last few words for the evening.
Indeed, Steve, we do need to head home now. It's now gotten quite dark and not really safe to be out, so we're going to abandon our search. But what is very interesting is that we found tracks that are fairly good from today of both, well, a leopard and a cub. So what I feel is Kalamba, but then that begs the question as to why she walked all the way from the south to Buffelshoek Dam, then came back with Kalamba to sort of behind the dam wall, then to go back to Buffelshoek Dam. It makes no sense to me, so I don't know. We'll have to just see. Maybe we can employ the sort of help of Thelma to try and find out where exactly they went during the course of tonight and tomorrow morning and see if we can actually find them. But it's an interesting kind of piece to the puzzle, and it just goes to show that we're not 100% sure on what's going on. It's very possible that the leopard and cub that was just seen now at Buffelshoek Dam is not Tundi. It was seen by somebody that doesn't know the leopards, and they said they weren't sure. So, you know, we could be wrong. Could be maybe Kuchava and the cub went north. We know we had tracks for them this morning, so it could very well be that they headed up in that direction. But we do need to head home, unfortunately, which is, well, I suppose that's the way it goes. I would have liked to have stayed out longer, just given it's such a beautiful evening. It's kind of, that sun has dipped and there's a bit of sort of freshness in the air now, but it is still absolutely beautiful out here. But we've had an absolutely epic afternoon, Dave, and I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. Lots of laughs with Herbie this afternoon. He's been full of jokes, and so it's been an entertaining afternoon. So we're going to head home. While we do that, I think I'm sending you back to Ralph. Might be Steve. Either way, it will be fun.
Yes, well, he's going into a very tricky area with a couple little aardvark holes. We don't want to get stuck. So maybe that's what he's going to try and do. He's going to try and get a warthog. He's just disappeared into the thickets there, making it very difficult to follow. Very, very difficult. Got to take it very slowly. There, I can still see him. I still see him just off to the left there. Very difficult to follow a leopard in this environment, but we'll do our best. Just see him off the left there. It's opening up now. We went through a little bit of a dense patch there. There we go. That's a nice open clearing. And when definitely, I mean, the purpose of him scent marking is more of a delayed sort of, if an animal walks in here later, because obviously the scent mark stays for a couple of days. So any individual over the next 2 days will walk across his scent mark and be like, ooh, strong male leopard here. Let's rather avoid the area. Definitely that's why he's doing it. That is the reason why they do it in general, is to keep unwanteds out. And obviously if a wanted male came in and spotted, or came in and smelt him and was willing to challenge, well then it's go for it, then it's go time. But ideally he wants every individual to think he's in peak condition, and that's why he's calling as well. Basically announce all is well on his side, even though it might not be. Hence the bluff. I'm just going to try get up ahead here. He's just moving off to our left hand side. A little bit more of an open patch. Coming straight down to Gowrie Main. The fire break is right here. About to cross the fire break. Hold on, Craigo. There he is. He's wondering if the grass is greener on the other side. I can assure you, sir, it is just as brown as here. And he's still got a little bit of a limp there. It's not looking as bad as it did. He'd been sitting on it for some time. Okay, let's get around here. Anita, you do see that with lions and leopards, that they generally have a paw that they prefer to lick their face with. It's not as noticeable, in my opinion, with leopards as it is with lions. But you know, I think maybe I've just spent more time with leopards, with lions. So here we go. He's about to cross. Where are you going to go, my friend? He's going to go sit up on that termite mound. Let's just stop right there. Nothing more we can do. Has he spotted something from all the way back there? So you tend to see that with lions when they sit. They've got the one paw that sort of sits at an angle, and they generally groom themselves more with that. But, you know, I think they do use both. But in anything that's dual purpose, two arms, you're always going to have a favourite one. See if we can get around here. Get one last look at him, wherever it is that he's going to. Hold on, Craig, it's a bit of a bump. Oopsie, that's the bump. And there he goes into Little Gowrie. I'm just going to let everybody know. The stations, Tingana is still mobile south. He's just crossed Gowrie Main. There we go. I wonder if he's going to give us one last call before he disappears into the wilderness. But that is where he's going, folks. Look at that. It's fraught with dangers. Tingana's on the prowl. He's a big, strong cat still, don't you worry. And I'm sure it's not the last we've seen of him. He just needs a meal or two and a drink or two, as the evening starts to set. Ralph Kirsten has already got his lights on.
Hi guys, I'm just having a chat here with one of the other vehicles just to find out what's happened with Thandi. So yeah, I think she you know, but she could walk one way and then turn. I mean, I've watched him doing that as well.
So I think we caught her on the horizon. She's probably done one of her twists out to the north.
I think she's probably in that block, and she might even be on a kill. Maybe that's why she's got Tlalamba with her.
Okay.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then you know, if we didn't follow her into the actual kill, then we're not going to find her.
Got the cub right with her. Could that be the...
Quite possibly that she's on a kill. Maybe the bushwalk team, maybe tomorrow morning, will be able to catch up with her. Okay. So we'll do that. I've left her now. I'm gonna go and see what else we can find, and hopefully tomorrow morning we'll find her.
Cool.
All right, folks. Enjoy, huh? See ya. Yes. I am live, yeah. We'll chat tomorrow, okay? Cheers, guys. Sorry about that, just being nice and chatty with the guys because they were helping us a little bit earlier with looking for Thandi. So it's just finalizing up there with them. I think tomorrow morning the bushwalk team needs to go in and see if they can catch up with Thandi and Tlalamba. Because I have a feeling that she is on a kill, and that's why she's taken Tlalamba in there. She's gone and fetched her, and now she's on her way to go and have a little bit of a feed tonight, the two of them. It's possible, maybe not. Maybe they just they're moving. Maybe she's even taking her for a little bit of a hunt herself, but I doubt that. I think the most likely scenario is that there's a kill there. The second most likely is that Thandi has just returned to spend some time with Tlalamba and just make sure that she's all right. So the time also spent with the two of them, Thandi and Tlalamba, is ultimately going to start becoming less and less. And eventually, like with Thandi and Kuchava, she's going to be quite aggressive towards Tlalamba and not tolerate her being around her. And so she'll then have to move off on her own and go and find her own food, etc. And then she will be an adult and have to make her own way. But she's also, you know, already starting to do that now, and Tlalamba is starting to become very curious and also starting to stalk little other animals too. So she's just really becoming a little female leopard herself. And it's wonderful to see and watch that whole thing unfold. They do grow up so fast, don't they? I find it the same with my little boys. It feels like just the other day they were just born, and now they're almost becoming little men. Minamu, absolutely. I miss those hyenas in the Mara. I tell you what, that North Clan, I could go and sit there every single morning. I'm very jealous of Jamie. She gets to go and do that on a regular basis. And Manu and Archie, the cameraman there, they send me regular updates and little tidbits of what's going on there, because we really had lots of fun while I was there, and they enjoyed that I like going to the den, especially Archie in particular. And they've even started a WhatsApp group called Hyena Men, and they invited me, so I was definitely found to have liked the hyenas. So Minamu, absolutely, I do miss those hyenas. And yeah, I wish there was a clan, or the Juma clan would make a den on Juma once more, because we've got a lot of hyenas here, but they're very nomadic. They seem to just pass through. We hear them a lot. But we haven't. We got very excited a couple of months ago when we saw one digging at a termite mound, but it just resulted or landed up being that she was probably just finding a little bit of a warm spot. And it was sad, because when they had that elephant carcass there, it would have been great if they just then denned from there. Right, I think we need to probably change our camera into the night vision or the infrared, but well, it seems Steve has already done so.
Thanks, Ralph. We have indeed. We are in the colour of Tingana now, his visuals, which is always nice. So about to see that different perspective. And sadly, folks, he did cross indeed directly south away from us, but still moving, which is a good thing. It's a good thing he's not giving up. If he just lay down, then there would be a worry, but he's moving. He knows he's still got areas to defend and to protect, and there are interlopers at every corner. Kimberly, you want to know my favorite reptile? It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I don't really know. What's my favorite reptile to see? I like seeing reptiles. I don't like to touch them. I won't go near touching them if I can help it. Monitor lizards are always quite interesting. Sorry, we just have a vehicle up ahead. Not sure what the roadblock is. Traffic. This is my afternoon traffic. What is it today? Thursday afternoon. Thursday afternoon. Okay, well, it seems like they're looking at some diurnal animals, so we're just going to move on back the way we came and avoid that altogether. How does that sound, Craigo? So I like to see snakes, I suppose, because they always invoke something within myself. When I see a snake, I always feel a little bit, I don't know, wow, I'm glad I didn't step on that sort of thing. I've nearly stepped on many snakes, but I somehow have not yet done so. When you're walking in the bush, you know, puff adders, they tend to just hide there. So, I mean, it's nice to see them. I don't know, I don't really love reptiles, to be honest with you. There's nothing that in my heart goes, yay, another reptile. I don't know, they're cold-blooded and they feel strange, and they're very different to what we are. So I wouldn't say I love reptiles. I think the thing I love most about reptiles is that they were the origin of birds. So there we go. I suppose we can look at the bird side. I absolutely love birds, but if we took all the feathers off birds, they probably wouldn't look as pretty as they do. So birds, bring it on. I love seeing birds. Reptiles, nice to see them from a distance, I suppose. Far enough that you can poke a stick. You don't have to engage with them too much. I remember being on a walk once and having a black mamba start coming towards me like that on the path. Just started coming towards us and then just skittered off to the left. I tell you, your heart just jumps in your throat. Nearly stepped on a python. They're very slow movers when they're full. Must be tortoises. Tortoises are my favorite form of reptile, without a doubt. Chelonians, very slow movers, very peaceful. I think seeing a turtle in the ocean once was a highlight for me. A green-backed turtle swimming while I was scuba diving. That was probably a highlight for me in the ocean. I haven't done too much scuba diving, so seeing white-tip reef sharks and a green-backed turtle while swimming was really, really cool. But now Hyena Ralph loves his hyenas. I wonder if he's got a favorite reptile.
Well, I must say it's really a tight race with my favorite reptile, but there's one that definitely stands out head and shoulders above the rest. As you know, I am a very avid surfer, and I have been in contact with a few reptiles of the ocean, and when I'm out there surfing, especially when I'm by myself and coming into contact with those turtles, especially leatherback, loggerhead or green turtles, but I'd have to say the leatherback, the largest of them all, would have to be my favorite. They are absolutely incredible creatures and very peaceful, like Steve says about tortoises. But Then, so that's just for a real soul type thing for me, and the way that they nest on the beaches. I've also been present with some of us in Isimangaliso National World Heritage Site up the northern parts of KwaZulu-Natal, as well as into Mozambique. I've witnessed both the laying of the eggs and the hatching of the little turtles and them going into the ocean. But then, you know, reptiles do very well in hot climates, and with that in mind, like in Australia, Namibia is full of really crazy and awesome reptiles, and there's a couple of them that I used to run a little tour in Swakopmund with the living desert tours, and we used to do a morning safari for guests that would arrive in town, and it would just be a half-day tour. But what we would do is we'd pick them up and we'd drive them into the dunes between Swakopmund and Walvis Bay, and there we would search for the reptiles of the dunes, and the one was the Namakwa chameleon. It's the only terrestrial chameleon that you find, and we used to look for their little tracks and literally track them into the little dollar bushes, which are succulents that have leaves that look like dollars, so very round leaves like that. And the little Namakwa chameleons used to like staying in there, but also running along the ground. They're very large chameleons too. So the Namakwa chameleon, and then we also used to look for the little Peringui's side-winding adder, and that is a very special snake that can climb up the side of sand dunes, but he does it sideways, as the side-winding suggests. But what is crazy about the little Peringui's side-winding adder is that he's got eyes on top of his head. So what he does is he curls himself into a little coil, and then he'll juggle his body around like this, that he actually buries himself into the sand, leaving only his eyes exposed. Now, him being an adder, he's a little bit like a puff adder. He's an ambush hunter. So when he does that, then he waits for the unsuspecting prey, such as a little gecko, to walk past, and he'll bite it, grab it, and swallow it. And speaking of geckos, another one that is pretty amazing, but that going then onto the lizards, is the palmetto gecko. Buries himself inside the dune, and he's one of those little guys that when the sand dune gets very hot, he'll be on the surface of the sand. He does the dance where he lifts one leg, one arm, one leg, one arm, so he keeps himself not too hot on the surface of the dune. And what he also does is in the mornings when there's mist around, a little bit of moisture, it gets water on his body, he'll lick his eyeballs as well. So the palmetto gecko, another one. And the last one being the shovel-snouted lizard. He's a crazy little bugger, and what he will do is, if you get close to him, he'll just literally dive into the side of the sand dune. But I used to watch them, so I run along the bottom of the dune, and then I throw my hat up. And when I throw my hat up, they bury themselves in the dune. But if you see where he went in the dune, they'll literally only go about 10 centimeters into the sand. So then you can run up there and quickly grab him out, and you've got him in your hand. And everybody used to be quite amazed that I was able to catch this little lizard, but it's quite easy when you know how. And then what you do is you just hold him and irritate him by his mouth a little bit, and just give him a little bit of irritation. Don't hurt him, but then he'll open his mouth. And then I used to get, especially the youngsters, the kids, and I used to do it to myself as well, but I used to get the kids to come by, and I used to put him, and if you put him on your earlobe, he'll then clamp down on the earlobe and literally hang there. So you could have this shovel-snouted lizard earrings. It was absolutely fabulous. So we used to have so much fun in the dunes with all of these little reptiles, and if you knew all the little secrets like I do, you would be able to find all of these crazy little things. So I really love reptiles in all their crazy forms and sizes, and well, it seems like Steve has found something, not a reptile but another mammal that's very big and large.
Yes, indeed, is not a reptile, and it seems as if Ralph gave that a lot of thought, his questions on reptiles. And Craig and I found a giraffe in the infrared. Really beautiful shot, and a beautiful long tongue. Moved off from the road there. Almost think of a reptile when it sticks its tongue out like that, don't you? But he moved off the road. He's now deliberately going to start feeding, I suppose. His ears are moving backwards and forwards, trying to spot anything or hear anything in the darkness. Bear in mind, these animals do see better than us at night, but they don't see pitch black. So it is definitely a worrisome time for these, well, not really for the large male giraffes. They don't seem to worry about too much out here. The lions, I haven't found a lion kill on a giraffe in some time. Jenny, a beautiful silhouette. Giraffe is playing so nicely with us. And as soon as Ralph started listing all of his reptiles, I realized that chameleons are definitely one of those very special ones. Craigo, I'm going to move forward a foot. You might get a nice little view of him there. Tell me when you got him. Not a bad way to end. Oh, he's ducked his head down. Doesn't want to be spotted. Anyway, we'll move on. What a marvellous way to come towards the end of the show. So, yes, Ralph has definitely given his reptile thought lots of thought. A beautiful evening, Yvette. It has been. I've only just put on my jacket, so it's not even that cold. But then you realize that only when you start driving, that's where the temperature drops. As soon as we get back to camp, it's not cold at all in the shelter of our abode there. But hopefully, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, someone will have a fire going when we get back. Megan? Yes, I'm sure someone will. That'd be lovely. Nice little chat around the fire, a little catch up. She's laughing. I know Megs is still busy working, so she won't be making the fire, but who knows? Maybe Tristan has jumped on board, made it. That'd be nice, Trist, if you're watching. Be a good fellow. It's lovely to be back. It's lovely to be back in the bush. The freshness, it's not so cold. Only one layer on. Well, including my shirt, so 2 layers. No gloves, no zip. But there is a warm front at the moment, followed by a cold front. It's going to be very cold in the next 2 to 3 days. The layers will be coming on. But it has been really nice being back in Djuma, in the Sabi Sands, back from my leave, feeling very fresh, and nice to be out with you again, Craigo, and looking for leopards. Tingana back on my first night. Thank you to all of you for joining. We'll see you again bright and early in the morning for another episode of Safari Live. Have a beautiful evening. Good night.